I can't hear anything. I don't,
Oh, yeah, there we go. We can hear you, Lily. We're going to mute you. And you can always unmute yourself if you wish to speak later. Correspondence? Oh, no, nothing. That's not related. Yeah.
Other than the stack.
Yes. Does anyone in the public have questions about any resolutions that were not subject to a public hearing? Anyone on Zoom? Okay, we'll proceed with resolutions. Liz, if you could have started. Great.
All right. Whereas Courtney O'Sullivan and Pierre Champagnel,
Yeah.
74 Peconic, Suffolk Tax Maps 700-25-1-6 have petitioned the town of Shelter Island for a permit to remove 101 plus or minus feet of timber bulkhead base to be replaced in place with vinyl sheet bulkhead and to remove and replace a 10-foot return along the southern property line with a vinyl return and to backfill with existing fill from the property as per plan submitted by S. Heaney Marine Construction Incorporated dated March 4th, 2026 and approved by the New York State DEC under General Permit GP 122001 dated April 2nd, 2026. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 53 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, a public hearing will be held on Monday, August 10th, 2026 at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter prevailing time and in the Shelter Island Town Hall, 38 North Ferry Road, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested persons to be heard in favor and oppositions to the proposed application. So moved.
Second, all in favor? Aye. Motion carried.
Whereas Bingo Project Solutions LLC, care of Nancy Wang, 47B South Ferry Road, has petitioned the town of Shelter Island for permission to install a riparian mooring at a location designated as latitude 41.06717 north and 72.30653 west. Now therefore be it resolved that pursuant to section 90-5 of the Code of the Town of Shelter Island, public hearing will be held at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter prevailing time on Monday, August 10th, 2026 at Shelter Island Town Hall, Shelter Island, New York, for all interested persons to be heard in favor of or in opposition to the proposed installation. So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Whereas an application for site plan approval was submitted by SI Corner LLC doing business as Stars Cafe at White Oak, the applicant, on May 7th, 2026 to convert the existing White Oak wine tasting business to a coffee shop with packaged goods, and whereas the project is located at 4 Manwaring Road, Suffolk County Tax Map number 700-15-3-1.2, Shelter Island, a 44,670 square foot property located within a business B zone district. And whereas the project was deemed a type 2 action for State Environmental Quality Review Act purposes, and whereas the subject application was referred to the Building Department, Conservation Advisory Council, the Planning Board, and the Town Engineer, and reports therefrom were issued and taken under consideration. And whereas on June 29, 2026, a public hearing was held on the subject application where public comments were received and taken under consideration. And whereas the Town Board has reviewed said application with regard to the standards of review enumerated in Town Code Section 109-3, and now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board hereby approves the subject site plan for the applicant to convert the existing White Oak wine tasting business to a coffee shop with packaged goods located at 4 Manwaring Road, as shown on the site plan prepared by Matthew Benjamin Sherman, P.E., dated May 7th, 2026, last revised June 2nd, 2026, and subject to the following condition. 1, applicant shall plant and maintain vegetation along the post and rail fence fronting Manwaring Road, starting at the western entryway for 30 feet running to the east so as to block parking along the post and rail fence in that area. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain.
Okay.
Um,
Motion carried.
Yeah. Whereas a public hearing was held on Monday, April 6th, 2026, to hear any and all persons either for or against a local law entitled, a local law amending chapter 115, taxation, article 6, exemption for volunteer firefighters and ambulance workers. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board does hereby adopt local law number 4, 2026, be it enacted in the town board of the town of Shelter Island as follows. Now, this is on file and has been greatly discussed, so I think I need to read this.
Yeah.
So you can grab a copy at the clerk's office if you don't already have one. So we jump to the resolve bit. You'll find it in 3 pages, that's it. Yeah. Yeah. So it says, local law shall take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State. So moved.
Second.
Roll call vote. I am abstaining.
I'm abstaining.
I vote yes. Benjamin Diet,
Vote yes.
Albert Dixon,
Yes.
motion carried.
Whereas the Shelter Island Lions Club Foundation, P.O. Box 760, Shelter Island, New York, 11964, has submitted an outdoor assembly application requesting an exemption from the noise ordinance for their July 25th, 2026 fundraising event at Gardner's Bay Country Club, 12 Dinah Rock Road, from 6 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. And whereas the town board reviewed and discussed said request at the July 7th, 2026 work session, now therefore be it resolved that said exemption from the noise ordinance is hereby approved. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas Stephen Cyril, on behalf of Sylvester Manor Educational Farm, P.O. Box 2029, Shelter Island, 11964, has submitted an outdoor assembly application requesting an exemption from the noise ordinance for their August 8th, 2026 Creekside Concert fundraising event from 4:30 to 7:30 p.m. And whereas the town board reviewed and discussed said request at the July 7th, 2026 work session, now therefore be it resolved that that said exemption from the noise ordinance is hereby approved. So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Roll call this. I'm abstaining.
Oh, okay, yes, that's a good idea. Okay, I vote yes.
Liz has to abstain too.
Because it's Sylvester Manor and you're on the farm committee.
Yeah, abstain.
Yes, okay, so you're abstaining, okay. Yes, okay. Albert Dixon,
Yes.
motion carried. Thank you. It's me, right? Yes, okay.
I know.
Whereas pursuant to Chapter 33 of the Town Code, the Taylor's Island Foundation has submitted an application requesting permission to hold a benefit for the Smith Taylor Cabin and the Taylor's Island Foundation on Saturday, August 15th, 2026, at the Josephson Preserve on South Cartwright Road, with events set up beginning at 1 p.m. and all cleanup to be completed by 8 p.m. And whereas said application has been reviewed by the Police Department, Highway Department, Town Board, and discussed at the July 7th, 2026 work session, now therefore be it resolved that the Town Board hereby does approve the outdoor assembly application submitted by the Taylor's Island Foundation for their benefit. So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Discussion. I had asked that maybe this be clarified further at the work session, that the Taylor's Island Foundation actually manages a town asset property. And just so this isn't opened up to public use, really, that CPF becomes public use, that's all. But we agreed on that.
But CPF properties are for public use.
Yeah, but for parties? Is that what we want?
I'm not
You
sure.
remember I brought it up at the work session?
Yeah, and I think we would do them at, on a, as common basis. So if someone else comes with a request, we can deny it.
Okay, all right. I thought you agreed with me.
Yeah, no, and I mean, I do like Taylor's Island Foundation
Okay.
using this is because of the connection. I'm gonna vote yes. Any further discussion? No. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Whereas pursuant to Chapter 33 of the Shelter Island Town Code, the Shelter Island Lions Club has submitted an application requesting permission to hold the annual Snapper Derby on town grounds at 40 Northbury Road on Saturday, September 5th, 2026, from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., with events set up beginning at 2 p.m. and cleanup time ending at 8 p.m. And whereas the applicant has requested an exemption from the noise ordinance and permission to place 4x4 plywood signs from August 8th, 2026 to September 8th, 2026 in 4 locations around the island to promote the event. And where said application has been reviewed by the police department, the highway department, town board, and discussed at the July 14th, 2026 work session. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board does hereby approve the outdoor assembly application, exemption from the noise ordinance, and signage request with the condition that all signage be placed in a manner that does not obstruct the line of sight for motorists or create any roadway safety hazard, and that all signage be removed by September 8th, 2026. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas the term of Phil Diorio as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals expired on July 8th, 2026, and whereas Mr. Diorio has expressed his willingness to continue to serve the town in said capacity, now therefore be it resolved that Phil Diorio is hereby reappointed to serve as a member of the Zoning Board of Appeals for a term to expire on July 8th, 2031, and be it further resolved that Mr. Diorio is hereby designated and appointed as chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals, and that his term as chairman shall run contemporaneously with his term of appointment to the committee. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas the term of Joseph Messing as a member of the Board of Assessment Review will expire on September 30, 2026, and whereas Mr. Messing has expressed his willingness to continue to serve the town in said capacity, now therefore be it resolved that Joseph Messing is hereby reappointed to serve as a member of the Board of Assessment Review for a term to expire on September 30, 2031, and be it further resolved that Mr. Messing is hereby designated and appointed as chairman of the Board of Assessment Review, and that his term as chairman shall run conterminously with his term of appointment to the committee. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Resolved that Lorraine Meehan is hereby appointed to serve as a full-time cook for the Senior Center Nutrition Program for 30 hours per week for the annual salary of $48,892.50, effective July 20th, 2026, with a probationary period of 26 weeks. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Be resolved that Frank Emmett is hereby appointed to serve as a shopping assistance driver for the year of 2026, retroactive to July 9th, 2026, to be paid at a rate of $25.72 per hour. So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Resolved that Jerry Siller is hereby appointed to serve as shopping assistance driver for the year 2026, retroactive to July 16, 2026, to be paid at a rate of $25.72 per hour. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Resolved that Lori DePoto is hereby appointed to serve as shopping assistance driver for the year 2026 to be paid at a rate of $25.72 per hour. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Whereas the town of Shelter Island is committed to promoting physical activity, exercise, and youth socialization through the provision of accessible playgrounds that are open to the public, and whereas the town of Shelter Island community currently has 2 public playgrounds available for use by the general public, including a playground on the grounds of the Shelter Island School District for children ages 6 and up, and the tot lot at School Street. And whereas the conditions assessment prepared by the town of Shelter Island, town engineer, and Department of Public Works finds that the tot lot on School Street is 28 years old and in deteriorated condition, contains playground equipment designed for children ages 2 through 8 years old, lacks accessibility and universal design elements to accommodate children with neurodivergent needs, physical disabilities. And whereas the town of Shelter Island has entered into a lease agreement with the town of Shelter Island School District governing the town's role in maintaining and improving the tot lot, with a term of such lease expiring on April 30, 2041. And whereas the town of Shelter Island has engaged in ongoing discussions with the Shelter Island community regarding the need for a playground that offers universal design elements for children ages 2 through 8. And whereas the town of Shelter Island has prepared a conceptual design and cost estimate for redevelopment and expansion of the tot lot on School Street that will provide a playground for children ages 2 through 8, designed so that children with neurodivergent needs, physical disabilities, and typical developing children can play alongside one another. And whereas the total cost of a major playground redevelopment and expansion project to include playground equipment and safety surfacing is estimated at $455,215.50. And whereas in accordance with Resolution 2026-302 adopted June 8, 2026, the town board has submitted a grant application to the New York Plays grant program requesting 80% funding support and supporting 20% local matching share. And whereas recognizing that the New York Plays grant awards are not expected to be announced until August 2026, and in order to maximize the town's ability to secure grant funds for this project, other grant opportunities will be pursued. And whereas the town of Shelter Island hereby requests financial assistance from the New York State Environmental Protection Fund initiative overseen by the New York State Office of Parks, Recreation, and Historic Preservation, with applications due by July 31, 2026. And whereas the town of Shelter Island certifies that it has identified $227,607.75 of matching funds from the town capital funds and community fundraising, representing 50% of estimated project costs. In the event the New York Plays application is not approved for an award. Now therefore be it resolved that the town of Shelter Island hereby authorize the town supervisor, Amber Brock Williams, or her designee to act on its behalf in submittal application to the New York Plays Initiative for $227,607.75, representing 50% of the estimated project cost for the tot lot major redevelopment and expansion project. So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized to execute a letter of permission for Oyster Keepers, Inc., allowing access to approximately 3,000 square feet of underwater lands in Menantic Creek, an area depicted by Oyster Keepers Menantic Creek map and bound by the following coordinates. And so I'm not going to read all of these. Is that okay? They are posted, and I'm certainly going to do it wrong. And approximately 3,000 square feet of underwater lands in Dickerson Creek, an area depicted on Oyster Keepers Dickerson Creek map and bound by the following coordinates. Please see the resolution. Subject to the approval by the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation for the purpose of oyster reef restoration and ecological enhancement. So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
To resolve that the amount of funds requested for the third round of the Suffolk County opioid settlement funds, as stated in resolution number 2026-334, is hereby amended from $346,768 to $349,676. So moved.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
You said aye?
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Aye.
Motion carried. Resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to execute the contract with ADP Inc. for payroll services. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Resolved that the town supervisor or her designee is hereby authorized and directed to execute a memorandum of understanding between the town of Shelter Island and Clare Medical Practice to meet and discuss the healthcare needs of the community. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Resolved that the town supervisor or her designee is hereby authorized and directed to execute an agreement with the Southampton Hospital Foundation for the Shelter Island Stony Brook EMS Fly Car Program. So moved.
Second?
Discussion, I want to table this because we were not able to get a hold of the 2025 contract, and so we want to have them both together. The staff are trying to get their hands on it, so we're going to table it until next month.
Okay.
All right, whereas the town board approved an outdoor assembly application for Sunset Beach Hotel for the viewing of the World Cup final match on July 18th, 2026, yesterday, and whereas a compliance fee of $100 cleanup deposit was paid, now therefore be it resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to return the deposit of $100 to the Sunset Beach Hotel. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Be resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to issue a refund in the amount of $963.50 to Robert and Ingrid Fagan from the 2026 B1289 Wetlands Consultant Fees Revenue Code. So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Refresh my memory on.
So their application came under, before we had the code change that allows us to bill for consulting fees.
Got it.
So they were billed for them under the new code, but they were actually subject to the old code, so
Okay.
we need to return that.
Yep.
Which is not returning, they had a second application.
Session
And
and
we're
the
not,
fee for that.
and we're not, yeah, we're not returning the second application fee because it was a valid second application.
Okay.
Aye.
I was saying motion carried? Yeah. Okay.
Aye.
Motion carried. All right. Whereas the Town of Shelter Island Recreation Department has received a generous donation for the purpose of sponsoring a Wednesday by the Water at Wade's from Shelter Island Pools in the amount of $600, and whereas the receipt of these funds was not anticipated at the time of the 2026 budget preparation, now therefore be it resolved that the 2026 Revenue Code A2705W Wednesday at Wade's donations is hereby increased by $600, and the 2026 Expenditure Code A7310.400 Youth Recreation Programs is increased by $600, and be it further resolved that the Town Board and the Recreation Department extend their sincere gratitude to Shelter Island Pools for their generous contribution. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Resolved that the supervisor is hereby authorized and directed to deposit the reimbursement amount of $176.69 from Taylor Rando to the 2026 expense code A3120.487, Police Department uniform allowance due to an overage. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
Resolved that the following budget modifications are hereby approved. $23,793.95 increase to the A3589 State Aid Ferry Flood Mitigation Grant, and a $23,793.95 increase to the A5720.497 Ferry Flood Mitigation Study to increase the revenues and expenses for grant reimbursement. And $9,106.56 increase to the A2770 miscellaneous revenue, and a $9,106.56 increase to the A9040.800 workers' compensation, and $1,205.28 increase to a new B2770 miscellaneous revenue code, and a $1,205.28 increase to the B9040.800 workers' compensation, and $2,946.24 increase to a new DA 2770A miscellaneous revenue code, and a $669.60 increase to the DA 9040.846 mechanic workers' compensation, and $267.84 increase to the DA 9040.847 snow workers' compensation and a $2,008.80 increase to the DA 9040.848 brush and weeds workers' compensation, and $133.92 increase to a new DA 2770 miscellaneous revenue code, and a $133.92 increase to the DB 9040.4845 workers' compensation to be funded by the dividend check received from Paramount. So moved.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
resolved that 2026 general claims numbered 1213 through 1347 in the amount of $190,026.74. 2026 highway claims numbered 106 through 115 in the amount of $18,686.44. The 2026 Community Preservation Fund claims numbered 10 through 13 in the amount of $7,858.77. 2026 Water Quality Improvement Claim Number 4 in the amount of $32.66. And the West Neck Water Claim 2 in the amount of $550 are hereby approved for payment as audited, and the supervisor and/or any town board member is hereby authorized and directed to sign the approval for payment of the same. So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. Okay, and so we will adjourn the regular part of the meeting and open up the public hearings. The first one is a continuation of the Thompson Cochran dock application at Wyoming Lane. And this one needs to be adjourned, and we're going to adjourn it to date uncertain. They didn't meet the posting requirement, and they are, I think, having a relook at the application. So we don't, rather than last meeting, we postponed it to this meeting. Rather than continuing rolling it over, we will wait until they are ready to go forward with this application and post everything. Reset the public hearing now.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The second public hearing is a local law amending Chapter 53 docks.
Yes. On the 20th day of July, 2026, at the Shelter Island Town Hall, at 6:00 PM or as soon thereafter prevailing time on the proposed local law entitled, "A Local Law Amending Chapter 53 Docks in order to correct a Scrivener's error inadvertently made during the dock code update in 2025 in Section 53-8G."
Pretty much says it all. So unless the town board has any questions, I'll open it up to the public. Anyone in the public? Anyone on Zoom? Motion to close that public hearing.
Second?
On favor?
Aye.
The next public hearing to open is 9 South Cartwright Road, a zoning change application by Lynn Halligan, and it's a continuation of a previous public hearing. And I know that we have Teresa Mason. I was going to call on her first because at our last public hearing, she had made a statement about what her determination this was. So you were going to, had done a little bit of research and wanted to set the record straight, so.
Yes, so I apologize. My brain just kind of went into autopilot at 10:30 at night, and most of the zone change applications that I've dealt with in the past are type 1 actions. However, the section of the code, specifically section 617.4, that deals with type 1 actions. And under that section, there is a subsection that says, one second, let me find it. Under B3, it says the granting of zone change at the request of the applicant for an action that meets or exceeds one of the thresholds listed below is a type 1 action. But then when you go down to the discussion of new residential constructions, it talks about 10 units in a municipality that doesn't have zoning, which you have. So that doesn't apply. It has 50 units that are not connected to an existing water or sewage system, which again, doesn't apply because it's a single unit. It has a population of 150 1,000 people, and you're doing 200 units, again, not applicable. And then a population of more than a million people with 1,000 units, again, not applicable. So it was my incorrect statement that it was a type 1 action. It is an unlisted action pursuant to these two subsections, which is 617.4, I believe it is. 1 second. 617.4B3 and then 5. So those are the sections there. So it is not a type 1. It is an unlisted action. However, secret still does need to be done before the hearing can be closed and the decision can be made. Do you have any questions for me with respect to that? And again, I apologize. I messed that up. Brain just went on autopilot.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thanks for setting that straight.
Any questions from the board? Yeah. Thank you, Teresa.
You're welcome. If you have any more questions, you can always email me or call me. And again, my mistake, I apologize, and I wanted to correct that for the record.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was one of the reasons we kept it open. Does the board have any questions, or does the applicant actually wish to speak to any of the correspondence and things that have come in over the, like from PW Grosser, and we've got a file of.
I say I had 3 that were requested.
Okay, yes, so I could read those, Shelby, thank you.
So since the June 29th hearing, we've received 2 additional letters in support, 19 letters opposed, and 3 of those wanted to be read into the record at the meeting. So the first one was a letter of support from Mike Gaynor, and he says, I want to go on record once again in strong support of Ms. Colligan's application for a zoning change to provide affordable housing on her property. Count every essential worker on this island, town employees, board and committee members, firefighters, EMTs, teachers, police, and you'll find fewer than 200 people. Every time we lose one of them to the lack of affordable housing, they're replaced by a high wealth part-time resident. That is simply a fact. We talk a great deal on Shelter Island about protecting scarce resources, but no resource here is closer to running out than our year-round essential workers, people exactly like Ms. Colligan. If this board votes against solving this problem for Ms. Colligan, the message to this community will be unmistakable, that the people who keep this island running with their hard work, their service, and their dedication are not a priority worth protecting. I urge you to approve this application. Mike Gaynor. And then we have 1 letter opposed from Bob Fredericks. Dear Town Clerk and members of Shelter Island Town Council, I will be unable to attend the Town Council meeting discussing the application for a zone change at 9 South Cartwright with respect to the nearshore overlay. However, I would like to go on record against changing this zone and request that my letter be read into the record as part of the meeting. I believe the board should reject this application. There are many reasons for my objection, but the board has a history of changing the rules after the fact and then opening up regulations to further change based on making these exceptions. We need stability in the laws and regulations of Shelter Island, and we need to keep and enforce these rules and regulations. As a longtime resident, over 25 years, I am very concerned about making sure there is adequate potable drinking water on the island and now and in the future. Look at the inundation of visitors, including renters, this summer and every summer. The more exceptions are made so that some residents may increase their personal income, the more our fragile water ecosystem is stressed. We need to enforce regulations that protect our aquifer. The more people are allowed to construct any ADUs, and especially illegal ADUs, the more we risk what we have here on Shelter Island, a wonderful place to live, raise our children, and retire. How will the board deny future applications for zone changes to other property owners if it allows this application? It will be very hard to defend. It is amazing to me that the applicant can receive a $125,000 ADU grant and then profit from that grant by receiving further rental monies from renting that space. While the applicants have contributed their time and energy to Shelter Island, that does not mean they can take advantage of their service by getting favorable treatment from the town board. Please put the needs of the town and its residents first in making all decisions that might affect the lives of most of the residents of Shelter Island. Keep the needs of all of the island and its ecosystems and the waste from ever-growing ADUs. We should have environmental risk studies for any and every decision that affects the lives of the people who live year-round on Shelter Island. Thank you, Bob and Nancy Fredericks. And then the last letter opposed to be read was from Stella from the Shelter Island Heights Property Owners Corporation. Dear Shelter Island Town Board, the Shelter Island Heights Property Owners Corporation does not support the proposed zoning change for 9 South Cartwright Road. Our concern is not with the specific application, but with the town code provision that allows individual property owners to seek isolated zoning changes. Section 133-37 establishes no clear criteria or comprehensive analytical framework for evaluating such requests. Until recently, there was not even a formal application process to initiate these changes, suggesting that the current process has not yet been fully developed. We are not familiar with the analysis that led to the creation of the Nearshore Overlay and Peninsula District 26 years ago. However, conditions have changed significantly since then, including sea level rise, changing groundwater conditions, and other environmental factors. In response to these changes, our subsidiary, North Ferry Company, invested millions of dollars to raise its ferry ramps. These evolving conditions warrant a comprehensive review of the Nearshore Overlay and Peninsula District and other zoning districts before considering if any individual zoning amendments are warranted. We therefore urge the town to place a moratorium on individual zoning changes while it undertakes an island-wide review of the hydrogeologic data, groundwater flow, environmental conditions, and the continued appropriateness of existing zoning boundaries. This review should also be coordinated with the ongoing update of the town's comprehensive plan. The Heights cannot make a scientific determination regarding this particular application. However, allowing what is effectively spot zoning rather than making zoning decisions through a comprehensive planning process is inconsistent with sound planning principles and risks unintended consequences for the island. Thank you for your consideration.
Tom Cronin also wanted to throw it into the record.
Dear Supervisor Brock Williams and town board members, I write in support of the cited application, both as a private citizen and as the former town engineer. Over time, local governments have increasingly lost the practical ability to say yes to reasonable development. In an effort to prevent arbitrary decision-making, we have layered
Sorry, if
process.
you're talking, I can't hear.
This may be your screen, if you could just move the.
Can you hear me now? Okay. While these safeguards serve an important purpose, they also create an environment in which delay, inaction, and unnecessary burdens on applicants become accepted outcomes. Equally troubling is the fact that some of the most vocal opponents of proposed projects have themselves benefited from or engaged in the very practices they now seek to prohibit. When the original comprehensive plan was adopted, zoning action Z20 served as the impetus for creation of the Nearshore and Peninsula Overlay District. Although well-intentioned, its implementation was not perfect. Certain properties were included within the Nearshore despite not meeting all the criteria for inclusion. The board is now asked to consider one such property. The available data demonstrate that groundwater beneath the subject property is sufficiently deep and that there is no current risk of saltwater intrusion. The property lies approximately 800 feet from the tidal wetlands associated with Congdon Creek. Its topography slopes away from tidal waters, reducing the potential for pollutant migration. Nearby flood control parcels and dense vegetation further limit drainage concerns. The evidence does not indicate that the site drains toward sensitive tidal or freshwater wetlands. The nearest regulated wetlands are located more than 900 feet away and are separated from the property by vegetated lands and existing infrastructure. The proposed addition of an accessory dwelling unit will not materially increase the risk of pollution to groundwater, wetlands, or the coastal environment. Town code identifies the purposes of the nearshore as addressing circumstances in which the freshwater table is close to sea level, creating a risk of saltwater intrusion through consumptive use of potable water. The land surface is close to the freshwater table, increasing the risk of aquifer contamination. The land drains towards creeks or bays, increasing the potential for pollution through surface or subsurface drainage. Existing and anticipated development densities threaten ecologically sensitive areas. The land drains towards freshwater ponds that are hydraulically connected to outcroppings of the freshwater table, creating the potential for groundwater contamination. These conditions do not exist at the subject property. Some may argue that removing this parcel from the nearshore would establish an undesirable precedent. I respectfully submit that the opposite is true. Granting this application would correct a long-standing classification error and demonstrate the town's willingness to apply its regulations based on site-specific facts rather than broad assumptions. While the original designation was undoubtedly made in good faith, it reflected information and assumptions available at the time. As our understanding of environmental conditions improves, so too should our willingness to revisit and refine prior determinations. Good planning requires not only the foresight to adopt protective regulations, but also the judgment to recognize when those regulations no longer apply to a particular property. The integrity of the zoning code is strengthened, not weakened, when classifications are aligned with current facts and sound science. For these reasons, I respectfully urge the board to approve the requested zoning amendment. Sincerely yours, John C. Cronin.
Since the last public hearing, we had gotten a memo from PW Grosser, town engineer's memo, and a couple of supplemental submissions. So I turn over to the applicant if you wish to address any of your submissions, or
Yes.
if you wish to discuss your memo.
Matt, I think.
I can step back and let Caitlin from PW Grosser address their secret memo, and then step in if you'd like, whatever works.
Good evening. I'll hop in here. Caitlin Kime, Peter Grosser, on behalf of the town board. So on the memo that we had sent to the applicant, Matt has provided all the information that we have requested. At this time, we have received everything from the applicant, and we're currently reviewing and analyzing everything for seeker to make a determination of significance at this time. So I will pass it over to Matt Sherman if he wants to go through his responses. But that's all we have tonight.
Thank you, Caitlin.
Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Matthew Sherman, Sherman Engineering and Consulting. I'm here on behalf of Lynn Colligan, who's the property owner. She's in the audience tonight. Karen Hogue, Lynn's attorney, is also on Zoom tonight. We had a very long and information-filled hearing last month, so I'm not going to go over all of the finer details again, but I do want to hit a couple of key points just to kind of set the stage. One for people who are just starting to pay attention now, but also to just kind of refresh some memories. Okay, so as a quick recap, the property is a 1/4 acre. It's in AA zone, and it's in the Nearshore Peninsula Overlay District, which is why we're here this evening. As we laid out at the initial hearing, the property doesn't meet any of the 5 criteria that's laid out in the town code for the Nearshore Peninsula Overlay Zone, Overlay District, excuse me. Those are fresh water being close to sea level. That's defined in the comprehensive plan as 1.5 feet above mean sea level, plus or minus. Land surface close to the aquifer, that the land drains and the aquifer drain toward surface waters, that there's a high density of development in the area, and that the property drains toward freshwater wetlands. And as we laid out during the initial hearing, this property does not hit any of those marks. In that first hearing, Supervisor Siller, or Jerry Siller, previous supervisor of the island, had explained that he was supervisor at the time that the nearshore overlay was put into place, and that the boundary was created for expediency, not necessarily for accuracy. So they had a general idea of where they wanted the boundary to go, and they basically followed roads for the most part. In some areas they didn't. They bisected some properties. They went in 500 feet off the shoreline in Sylvester Manor. They did the same thing over towards West Neck. So there's a couple of areas that didn't follow roads, but for the most part, all of the zone followed roads. And that was part of what our initial discussion was how this property, even though the nearshore boundary follows down South Cartwright Road, it doesn't necessarily make sense once you get down to where this property is. There were several letters that were written in support of the application. John Cronin's was one from the first hearing that was just read into the record. And that agreed with our analysis and our conclusions of the specifics of this property and the specifics of this application. It's also important to note that after the hearing, because it was brought into question as to whether or not our analysis could be considered on the up and up, since we're working for the applicant. And so the town presented this to the town engineer, Joe Fenora, the current town engineer, who also concurred with our conclusions and felt that we had come to proper and reasonable conclusions on the facts of this property, and that inclusion in the nearshore overlay district did not make sense. One of the things that we had done initially was, before we came to the town board for the change of zone, we had gone to the zoning board of appeals for a use variance. The reason why we did that was because there was no process in place. Even though there was a mechanism in place in the town code to apply for a zone change, there was no process. So we went to the zoning board of appeals while the town was working on creating the application process for this. As part of that ZBA application, they had asked us to take the same facts and the same results and get an independent environmental analysis and evaluation of our conclusions to either correct or confirm. So we had brought on end consultant, Rob Herman, who is, as far as I'm concerned, beyond reproach. I don't think anybody questions his integrity and the results and the conclusions that he comes to, that they're not completely fact-based and completely supported by the facts of the site. And he had also concluded that our results, that our conclusions were reasonable and were appropriate. I'm going to just talk about a couple of quick things that were on that came out during that first hearing. One of the things that's coming out a lot from a lot of the people who are opposed to this are saying, if the board approves this application, that they're opening Pandora's box. And there's going to be people coming out of the woodwork trying to get all of their accessory sleeping units, or even buildings without any accessory buildings on them, and convert them into accessory dwelling units within the nearshore overlay district. And Jan Sudol, who was at the first meeting, had mentioned that where his property is, in his neighborhood on Little Ram, that most of the buildings there have accessory buildings. A lot of them have accessory sleeping. And what's to stop them from converting those, applying to the town to get taken out of the nearshore overlay district and converting those accessory sleeping buildings into accessory dwelling units? Excuse me. And if I could share my screen for a second, I'm going to go through some of the reasons why that's not possible, and that fear is unfounded. And what we've got is, I'm going to go through a couple of different websites. So these are not my information. This is information that I've gotten from the USGS and, let's see, the DEC. And let's see, here we go. Okay, so it should start sharing here in just a second. Hold on. Okay, so this is a Shelter Island GIS website. This is the island as a whole. And just to give you a quick idea of what it is we're talking about here, everything in pink is the nearshore overlay district. The property we're talking about is right here. That's 9 South Cartwright Road. So you see the line comes down South Cartwright Road, goes down to South Midway, up and around, comes over, includes some in Fresh Pond right here, wraps around Dickerson Creek, West Neck, and just basically rings the island as you would expect it to. That makes perfectly good sense. When you look at Little Ram, this area right up here, one of the things that we can look at is, how does Little Ram, how do these properties factor in to the criteria for the nearshore overlay? The first thing we're going to look at is the depth to groundwater, the groundwater table. And what this is this is the USGS. As luck would have it, there's an active USGS groundwater monitoring well right smack dab in the middle of Little Ram, right off the road. So you can click on that well, you can pull up the access, you can pull up the data. We'll go down, we'll look at it from groundwater level above the accepted datum, which is NAVD 1988. And we'll go to the full record of the time that they've got. So this is from, this first one is December 13th, 1983. Groundwater elevation is about 0.8 feet, 0.83 feet. So one, you can see that groundwater elevation fluctuates wildly over time. So you've got a low of, our lowest was right here, which is minus 0.3 feet in January of 2025. We've got a high of 1.5 feet in October of 2009. So you've got just over 1.5 feet of fluctuation between the groundwater elevations. The mean in this thing is approximately 0.5 foot. That runs right through the middle of all of these points. These are all data points. So for the properties on Little Ram, the groundwater is at an absolute maximum 1.5. It's really closer to 0.5. So that certainly would not meet the definition that would be required to say that groundwater elevation was high enough to justify being taken out of the Nearshore Overlay District. What we can also do is go to the DEC's website and we can pull up groundwater supply wells. And this is all publicly available information. Anybody can go to these websites and see this stuff. And of course, I'm getting a notice that says it's unavailable. All right, hold on just a second. Here we go. Let's try it again. There we go. All right, so let's just pick one right in the middle of the island, right in the middle of Little Ram. This is the groundwater supply well that was installed on this property. The depth of the total depth of the well below grade is 33 feet. It has a depth to groundwater of 18 feet. So the total well depth is, there's 15 feet of water in the well. The screen has a 5-foot length. So there's 10 feet of water above the well at this property on Little Ram. That's the absolute minimum that the health department will allow for a legal potable supply well. So that's nowhere near a deep enough aquifer to get out of that requirement for the Nearshore Overlay District. And then we can go back to the town's contour map. And in that same general area, your elevations in the middle of, by Little Ram Island Road, the drive, is about 20 feet, goes down to 15, goes down to 10 as you go to the north. And then it slowly drops from 20 to 10 to 5 as you go out to the shoreline on either side, either to the east or to the west. So the groundwater or the surface water is going to shed toward Cockles Harbor, going east and going west. Same thing with the aquifer. The aquifer in this area has a ridge that basically runs underneath Little Ram Island Drive, and the water in the aquifer is going to shed to the east and to the west. So when you look at the requirement for the Nearshore Overlay District, this area clearly is within the criteria for the Nearshore Overlay District. So remember, there's 5 different things. And of those 5 things, 3 of them apply here. The ones that don't apply is we're not impacting freshwater wetlands because there aren't any around. And this can't be considered a high density area. It's a very low to moderate density area. So of the 5 criteria, 3 of them hit the target. So there's not a chance that any of these properties should or would be allowed to remove themselves or have an request approved to remove themselves from the nearshore overlay district. Stop my share there. So that's kind of just to run contrary to a lot of there's some misinformation. There's some, some fear tactics, maybe. There's some, people who are making these statements that I'm sure that they don't know. Most of you probably don't know what the depth of groundwater is at your property. Probably don't know how deep your supply well is or how deep the aquifer is in the given area. Why would you? This isn't what you do for a living. So I'm sure there's honest, innocent mistakes being made when people are saying this is going to run rampant through the island. It simply can't, because the vast majority of the area that's in the nearshore overlay district should be, and the criteria apply. And this is just one small snapshot to show why that is the case. One of the things that has been mentioned, it was mentioned by Mr. Sudol as well as various other people, that, we're hired consultants. And as he said, you hire consultants that tell you what you want to hear. Lynn is not the first person that I've talked to about seeing if their property is appropriate for the nearshore overlay district with the purpose of seeing if they can put in an accessory dwelling unit. And I know people are going to say, oh God, listen, Sherman even said himself, there's a line of people waiting to come in the door. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is this question has been asked before. And what we can do is, what did that take? 5 minutes? So I can sit down with somebody and in 5 minutes show them if their property is not an appropriate spot to even think about taking it out of the nearshore overlay district. It's very straightforward. It's not complicated in any real way. So Lynn's is the first one that as we were going through it, we said, hey, wait a second, these criteria don't apply here. So let's see what we've got to do to see if we can make this application. So that's what we did. One of the things that Mr. Sudol also said, and I'm sure he said it with all the appropriate respect and affection that you would expect, that he doesn't want run-of-the-mill consultants looking at this stuff and opining on it and advising the town board about it. I'd like to think we're not run-of-the-mill consultants. I'd like to think that our reputations speak for ourselves, whether it's mine or Rob Herman's or Karen Hoag's or whomever else, John Cronin, Joe Fenora, the people who are doing this stuff and understand the science behind it are pretty much in agreement that everything is going in the same direction, that this property should not be in the nearshore overlay district. There's one other thing that I want to discuss real quick that's come up a couple of different times. That's the on-site sanitary system. In late 2021, Ms. Colligan put in a new IA septic system at her property. The smallest one we're allowed to design for in this kind of situation is a 4-bedroom IA septic. The health department doesn't care if it's a 3-bedroom house and a 1-bedroom accessory sleeping unit, accessory dwelling unit, or if it's a 2 and 2, or if it's a 4-bedroom house and you've got a pool house with a toilet in it, but there's no sleeping, so it would be considered a 4 and 0. It's the same septic system. A statement was made at the last hearing that it's a significantly different or a very different application. Not the case in any way, shape, or form. I'm not even sure where that information came from. The fact is there is a form that has to be filled out and signed by the town that the application meets the town zoning code and the town code. Typically, we do it with respect to zoning because that's what is the biggest thing that impacts everything. If the accessory unit meets zoning code, the town just signs it. If a zoning variance is required, we have to obtain that zoning variance first before we can even go to the town to sign that form. It's called the WWM 105 form. That was mentioned at the last hearing. So there's no way a 105 form could even be considered at this point because we still have approvals that we need to have behind us before we can take that step. So again, some misinformation is kind of implying that the process is not going through the proper channels. but it absolutely is. This is just, there's a natural progression of the way that these things are supposed to move forward. The other thing is there was a question brought up at the same time about the layout of the accessory dwelling unit. This is proposed to be is it's 2 rooms in the building, basically, a bedroom and then a kitchen, living room, dining room area. The town code requires a minimum square foot size of 480 square feet for those 2 areas, and it excludes bathrooms, hallways, closets, staircases, if there's a staircase, something to that effect. So inside Lynn's basement, we were able to set aside a portion of the building that has that 480 minimum square feet, 1 bedroom, and then we can call it a common room. There is not a scenario where that could be considered a 2-bedroom house. It's simply impossible. So again, the statement that was made at the last hearing that the health department could very well consider this more than a 4-bedroom house, it is impossible. I don't know where it came from. I don't know what was the motivation for saying that, but it's just simply not true. So this property is a 3-bedroom house, excuse me. It's got a 1-bedroom proposed ADU with a common area. The ADU is going to be inside the basement. So one of the questions that PW Grosser had asked us as part of their review is was there going to be any tree clearing, because Shelter Island has northern long-eared bats. So you've got to be careful when you're clearing trees. There's no exterior construction going on with the exception of an emergency egress window well, which is required by the building code, and then an exterior staircase, which is required to go down and access this building, this ADU, so you're not going through the main structure, the main building, to get down into the ADU. Those are both right up tight against the existing house, so there is no additional clearing, no trees to be removed or anything to that effect. The other thing that was brought up on the septic system is that it was what is referred to as a best fit approval. And at the time, there was no intent to do anything other than just replace an old conventional septic system with a new IA system. So a best fit scenario is allowed when that's all you're doing. You're not decreasing distances to wells. You're not decreasing distances to any kind of wetlands. You're not adding any construction or anything to that effect. You're just replacing the septic. And at the time, that was true. Here we are 5 years later, and the opportunities availed itself to Lynn to be able to do an accessory dwelling unit if she can get the approvals. So now what we'll have to do, once we get all of the approvals at the town level, if they come through, is apply back to the health department to switch that best fit approval to an actual typical residential upgrade approval. And that would have a number of bedroom count, 3 and 1 in this case. We would have to address the existing supply well, make sure it's okay, water quality is okay, separation distances and everything like that. So there is, when the town process is all done, there will be another application process, which will be in front of the health department in order to switch from the best fit approval to the regular red stamped approval, as we would call it, which would be for the 3-bedroom house and the 1-bedroom ADU. So that pretty much summarizes everything that got us up to this point today. I just wanted to highlight a couple of quick things again. This is not just our conclusions. These conclusions have been reviewed and supported by both the past and current town engineer. They've been reviewed and supported by N Consultants, one of the leading environmental consulting companies on the East End. And I look forward to see what PW Grosser has to say when they're done reviewing all the information and they put their recommendations out. I am confident that based on everything that we've seen, all the totality of the evidence, that they will come to similar conclusions as well. I know that that's all I've got for right now. I know that Karen Hoag wanted to address the board as well, to address some of the same issues that were brought up at the previous hearing and with some of the letters and correspondence that the town has received in the time since.
Thank you, Matt. Karen?
Thank you, Matt. Good evening, Supervisor and Town Board members. Karen Hoag from Timmy Latham on behalf of the applicant. The board has heard a great deal of testimony at the last meeting and received both letters in support and in opposition to this application. There's a lot of important information before you to consider, and I do want to make a few additional points. First, this application should be viewed site-specific, given the existing physical and environmental characteristics of the property. When the overlay boundaries were created, the lines were arbitrary. As noted by Supervisor Siller, and as commonly done in municipalities, streets were used as boundary lines for ease of zoning implementation. Doing it this way, some properties that were included don't really belong in the district, and this property is one of them. The town provided the public with a mechanism in which a property owner can appeal to the town to request a zone change if their property doesn't meet the criteria for the district, which is what the applicant has done here. After the last meeting, the board requested its town engineer, Mr. Fenora, to review the application and prepare an assessment of whether this property possesses the physical and environmental characteristics that the Near Shore Overlay District seeks to regulate. Mr. Fenora, in his report, noted that his opinion is based upon the available site-specific engineering information, assessment of the hydrogeological conditions, wastewater suitability, and potential environmental sensitivity. Specifically, Town Engineer Fenora comments that existing topography and drainage characteristics do not appear to direct runoff toward adjacent tidal wetlands, and that the nearest regulated wetlands are over several hundred feet away. The property is served by an advanced low nitrogen sanitary system, which Matt Sherman talked about, which substantially reduces the potential for groundwater impacts. Based upon his review of several factors, he determines that the collective weight of the available engineering evidence suggests that this parcel does not possess the level of environmental sensitivity contemplated when the overlay district was created. In sum, he concludes that the subject property does not presently exhibit the hydrogeological or environmental characteristics that appear to have motivated the creation of the overlay district, and that the available evidence presented to him provides reasonable engineering support for removal of 9 South Cartwright Road from the overlay district. This is important because the town's own staff performed an independent assessment and made a determination. And this is similar to some comments that Mr. Sherman made in regard to members of the public at the past meeting, making statements saying that the applicant can hire engineers and consultants to make conclusory findings. The removal of this property from the overlay district is consistent with the comp plan and surrounding uses. There is no likelihood of harm to surrounding properties if this property was removed from the district. And I hope that the board views this application globally. There's a need for full-time housing on the island, and allowing this parcel to be removed from the overlay district in order to construct an ADU in the basement of a modest-sized home where she lives supports this goal. The board should take this important need into account when reviewing the applicant's request. And unless the board believes that there is additional information needed to review the application, we would request that the public record be closed.
Thank you, Karen. All right, does the board have any questions at this time? No.
I actually have can I ask a question on Thomas?
Yes.
I had a constituent come to me and ask about some New York legislation around, I'm going to get this wrong, type 2 actions and like basically ADUs. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm expressing it poorly.
Yes.
Thank you.
I believe the governor very recently signed a bill that would make ADUs a type 2 action, like the building of an ADU a type 2 action. Now, this application is a rezoning application.
Okay.
So I think the board has to consider the impacts of, yes, it's has been explained by the applicant to build an ADU, but also all of the impacts of, it no longer being a near shore overlay property. But yeah, that's my understanding is the governor signed that bill a couple months ago. The secret regulations like the list that's online hasn't been updated yet, but that's part of it, is that the building of an ADU is now considered to be a type 2 action.
Anyone else on the board before I open it to the public?
Deal to the work session.
We hear a lot about, the submission, EN Consultants and Joe Fenor, even the town engineers made a submission. But the last paragraph, I just want to read that Joe Fenor wrote in his submission. More broadly, I believe this application highlights an opportunity for the town to undertake a comprehensive technical review of the nearshore overlay district. While the environmental goals of the ordinance remain both appropriate and necessary, the regulatory framework would benefit from modernization to incorporate objective engineering and environmental performance standards reflective of current scientific understanding. Such a review would strengthen the ordinance, improve consistency in its application, and ensure that the future regulatory decisions remain firmly grounded in measurable environmental conditions rather than generalized geographic assumptions. What he's calling for is look at this thing seriously. Do a study. Don't just take an applicant's representatives as giving forth information. Let's do a townwide study. Let's review it.
I think that's a discussion that we need to have when we get this to work session. I agree. We've got to find the money. We've got to figure out what the time frame, what it would look like. But it's, I think, a discussion that needs to happen.
I mean, this seems to be going like one way here. Joe Fenor is saying things, but in his conclusion, this is his last paragraph in his letter. And I think it says a lot.
Yeah, I'm planning on later this week reaching out to some people to find out what exactly this study would look like, potential costs, an RFP. I do believe we should do something like that.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Yeah.
A lot to talk about. And I agree with both of you on this. I'm going to skip over a lot of mischaracterizations of things that, Mr. Sherman just presented, especially Joe Fenor's letter, as evidenced by the last paragraph. But I guess work session is where a lot, but I mean,
Yeah, this is a public hearing, and so we are to listen to the public.
Yeah.
And ask questions that will help us in our work session discussion. And if there's no questions for the applicant from the board, I'll open it up to the public. Demarest, I believe, is online. Pam had requested to.
Speak up a little louder.
Oh, sure, yes.
I mean, if I can hear.
Yeah, Pam Demarest had been the first person to ask to speak today. So I'm going to call on her first. We have a PowerPoint presentation. It is 24 screens. 24 screens, so.
It's okay, Amber, it won't take long, trust me.
Please,
I understand it's a lot of information, but it's information that honestly, I don't think that the town engineer saw. I don't think that EN Consultants saw this information. I mean, Joe based his review on the available information that he was given. I don't know what that was. So I will start this way to say that I went to the WAC list of all the studies that have been done on groundwater and surface water, and because they were asked to compile that list. I went through those studies. So included in these 20 pages of slides that I can go through. Let me just pull this up. What we're looking at here is that I looked at the 2014 Shelter Island Watershed Management Plan.
Yeah, hold on just a second. I'm asking Federico.
Yeah, I'm just going to give you a preview before we get started with that. I just wanted to give you a little introduction.
Sure.
So I looked at the 2014 Shelter Island Watershed Management Plan, the 2015 Suffolk County Comprehensive Water Resource Management Plan. Nelson Pope and Voorhees did an alternate water supply study in 2020, probably 2015. I'm sorry, I don't have that. I looked at the Shelter Island Hazard Mitigation Plan, the Community Housing Board Plan, the Comprehensive Plan, a few of the USGS studies that were available, and some of the things that the Water Advisory Committee had mentioned, to look at whether or not it meets one, if not all of the criteria delineated in 133.12. Okay, so it's fine, obviously as an applicant here, she has a right to change, claim that, this parcel doesn't fit. I'm going to show you why I think it does from that data that I collected. I just want to say that the claim that the zoning change is related to community housing goals in the comprehensive plan isn't really true. Maybe it creates a two-person apartment in someone's basement, but it's not restricted on the rental income, and therefore it's not really affordable. Yeah, it's community housing, but it's not affordable housing. And I think that that's quite important in this case, because if it were affordable housing, maybe it would be a different story, but it's not. I'd ask you to look at the comprehensive plan, the final generic environmental impact statement that went along with that, along with the growth and comprehensive plan document that also was part of our comprehensive plan while you're looking at this review of this application. There's a lot of information in that. What I'd like to say is that in September of 2023, there was a public hearing on the comprehensive plan update. And during that meeting, there were boards put up, display boards where people could put green and red dots marking what they liked, what they didn't. There were a lot of red dots against spot zoning, which this appears to be. I'm not a lawyer, but it appears to be that. And after that, Councilwoman Ian Fowler wrote a letter to the paper and to clarify some of the statements that she heard during that hearing. And I'd like to read this. The plan does not weaken the nearshore overlay district, nor does it encourage, promote accessory dwelling units in the nearshore overlay district. Action item 4.4A states the nearshore overlay district code regulations and boundaries should be maintained and strengthened. Current regulations prohibit ADUs in the nearshore overlay district. Therefore, by maintaining and strengthening existing regulations, the plan states no ADUs. Further, the town should explore limiting housing size on small undeveloped parcels in the district, discourage variances from pre-existing structures, and establishing further protection of the nearshore overlay district. And then she finally says, finally, the plan recognizes the island character depends on low density residential zoning. And that's what AA is. And it's addressed in goal 4.1 on the new update. It is important to affirmatively state that if public sewers and water supplies are built, the residential density of existing residentially zoned areas should be maintained. So I just wanted to go into that. And as far as the community housing plan, for community housing, licenses aren't going to be issued for properties in the nearshore overlay district, and nor would they be issued for the ADU plus one state program, grant program. They're also, eliminated from that. There's been discussions of changing that for over 3 years now. I find that really concerning. But I'm going to go on and we'll go with the slides, and we'll go with the criteria that's put together here. So is he going to put that up for me, and then I can just read through it? Or do you want me to put it up, share my screen, or he's got it?
Oh, not that one. That was the last slide. There was one.
Well, that's just the one indicating the nearshore overlay district. It's something I put together just as a reminder to myself where the district lines lie. It's not important. We have it from the GIS. So.
You were hearing voting the email, maybe she wants to.
It would have been the one prior, but let me just resend it to you right now. You should have that now. And while we're waiting for Federico to do that, I just want to remind anyone who gets up to speak today, we did have a prior public hearing, so if you could try and confine your comments to new information and not just a repeat of what was said last time, that would be appreciated. Just because you say it last time and you say it this time, doesn't mean we're going to consider it twice. Any luck there?
Okay. So this document, obviously, got it? This document, I don't know if you can zoom in on it, but obviously it's from the Suffolk County Department of Health Services from 2002. It's very light. This came from an appendix to the Nelson Pope and Voorhees alternate water study, or alternate water supply study. And obviously this is Camp Dresser and McGee, very reputable firm. It is hard to see, but the inner line basically is where the saltwater intrusion can come after a certain period of time. When there is a drought, obviously. And we could move on to the next one. The next one also shows what happens in drought conditions. I mean, if I can't quite circle where the property is because I don't have a cursor on this. I have no control of showing where the property is, but Frederica, you could move to the next one. I think we all generally know the area of the property. So again, same source of information. You can see what happens regularly in the steady state with no fluctuations. And then when there's a drought, and if it's a 5-year drought, and how sensitive these areas can be. And you can see the red encroaching into the blue, which means that that's where your saltwater intrusion is coming from. And if you go to the next one. Okay, this one shows on the very far right side of the top where the blues are kind of meshed together, how close the interface is between the groundwater and the freshwater lens and the saltwater interface. You know, Mr. Sherman just said that groundwater fluctuates wildly. Yeah, well, that's the whole point here. It fluctuates wildly all the time. Yes, you're right, Mr. Sherman, it does. And if you're sitting at 1.5 feet more or less, which is in the comprehensive plan, then you wouldn't, then even if it's 2-foot groundwater depth, with these fluctuations that close with the saltwater interface, you're sort of at a risk of saltwater intrusion. And that's what it says in the code, a risk of saltwater intrusion. Not that there has been any there, but there is a risk there. We'd like to move on to the next one. This is also another indication from the same source. It shows you what the decline in the water table would be with the drought after 4 years and the water table impacts of the drought of 5 years. We all know we have some drought. Oh, you have to go back, Frederica. That one. So this is a 4-year look at the water table and a 5-year look at the water table. You can see how drastic that can be if you were in drought conditions for a long period of time. Clearly, where the niche is, where her property is, we have a problem, an impact there. And I think right then and there, with the groundwater being at a 2-foot depth and these indications from these sources, that, you know, it meets that criteria to be in the nearshore district. We go to the next one. This is from the this is from a 2018 study that was done. It does indicate at the very bottom of that picture, and it does show where the monitoring wells are and the depth up to the water table below the land surface. Kind of in her neighborhood, yes, she's dwindling between less than 11 feet, whatever. In any case, we know that the land is close to the freshwater table, and when you go and look at the Nelson Pope and Voorhees watershed management plan, it even says the quality and quantity of fresh groundwater is a matter of local concern. Increased withdrawal of fresh groundwater in the nearshore areas will cause further land movement of saline groundwater. In other areas, excessive pumping may cause upconing. So that is in my letter. I think that sort of answers that. They also go on to state on page 212 of that document, the nearshore areas are most susceptible to change in water table elevations, influencing the position of the interface. So again, I don't know that Mr. Fenora saw this. I don't know that he had the time to do this. He's the town engineer. He's not really supposed to be looking at private projects, but obviously the board had asked him to take a peek, but he should absolutely look at this. The Voorhees study also says that the nearshore areas are most susceptible to pumpage and water table fluctuations as a result of, changes in the recharge, thus making the areas most susceptible to saltwater encroachment and upconing. I think that meets the criteria. The next slide, please. This is a little cutout off of the green stamped plan that you have approval from the Suffolk County Department of Health. Obviously, it sounds like Mr. Sherman is aware that he needs to go back to get approval for this additional accessory apartment. I guess there's really no reason to talk about that, but clearly it says that what she has is only for the single family dwelling, not including the accessory apartment. You can go to the next slide. And number 3 says that the land drains toward the creeks or bays, increasing potential pollution from surface or below ground. So from the top or bottom. So here's a picture from the hydrological study that was done in 2014. Again, if you look at the blue lines, the blue dotted lines on this photograph indicate where the groundwater flow edges are. There's a couple of different districts on the island. So that's sort of the divide. And then as you can see, the arrows are pointing toward Congdon Creek and Cockles Harbor. And her property is going that way. The groundwater clearly drains that way. I can't dispute this data. I didn't make it up. But from looking at this, that's the way the groundwater drains. And could increase potential pollution. And we don't, and then again, I think that that's something that needs to be investigated, because also the underground seepage is also going toward the bays and harbors. I think this is a criteria that applies and would then keep this property in the district. And again, I did a few other pictures. You can go to the next one if you're not familiar with the topography. I know Ms. Larson asked for a topographical map. This is from the USGS. For those of you who don't know how to read these kinds of maps, where it's darker, it's higher in elevation, and where the lines are further apart, the elevation sort of smooths out. So you can almost see that dark ridge line encircling her neighborhood. And that's an indication of the high points. If you go to the next picture, it might be easier to understand, because this is in relief, and you can see the higher, darker areas of this map are the higher points on the island. So surrounding the neighborhood, I did put a little dot on it where her house exists. Clearly, the water is going in that direction. We can move on to the next slide. And I'll just mention that PW Grosser was interested in more information about the groundwater flow direction and the time of travel. So on this slide, I got this information from when PW Grosser did the TDR study for the town. And in here, you can see what basically, if you look to the top right corner, it notches out into that yellow area, orange area. That's where the property is. And that says it's a groundwater travel time of 0 to 2 years. So there seems to be a little conflict in that information, if it's 0 to 2 years, or is it 0 to 10? But this is information that PW Grosser supplied to the town years ago. I don't think that that's changed. I believe that they added it into their submission this time around. So again, low groundwater, a quick travel time. We could go to the next slide. This just shows you the contributing areas. This was also done in conjunction with the county. It's from the Suffolk County Comprehensive Water Resources Management Plan. So you can see Shelter Island on there, surrounded by that yellow area. Mostly all of the areas of Shelter Island are contributing areas to the surface waters and supply wells. And then the next slide shows you a little bit about what happens with sea level rise. So right now the white dots are kind of where things are. and where they stand as far as these discharge nodes. But as sea level rises, the red dots come into play. And you can see more red dots developing around her neighborhood. So that's just something I wanted to point out, again, from the Comprehensive Water Resources Management Plan. Also, I believe that covers the criteria. It's your call. And then we'll talk about the density of development. Now, this information came from Shelter Island GIS. Some of it may be from the assessor's office, but most of these properties on the direct street are non-conforming lots. And most of them have full basements. Some of them have partially finished basements already. Now, I have to say that there are 10 non-conforming lots in this neighborhood. And should they all decide that they want an ADU in their basement, is that where we move the line? Do we keep on moving the line toward Congdon Creek? I'm not really sure. But given the information, the property itself is the highest property in density in the neighborhood at 12%. The next highest one is at 8.56%, and then 8.4%, and then the rest of them are hovering around 3 or less. So to allow her to increase density in a non-conforming lot on a non-conforming structure seems against town code. It's not low density. It's technically it's low density now, but if you start to turn those properties into ADUs, you're going to have a significant impact on the neighborhood. And finally, the question about the freshwater ponds. Yeah, they're not near anyone. You can go to the. I don't have another slide for this right now. But the freshwater ponds, the issue with you can hold on to that one for a minute there. This is a slide that shows all of, no, go right to that one, Federico. That's fine. This shows more of the properties that are in the near shore overlay district along that road. And I've marked out how many of those are also non-conforming lots. And that's what we're talking about here. Again, this will have to go back to the ZBA to get a huge area variance to be allowed to do this construction. This is just an indication of the density of the neighborhood. I did put some indications on here with this RG1 and RG4, and those are indications from the assessors of what accessory buildings are already there. We could do further investigating, and maybe it's necessary to find out what the square footage is of those and see what's really happening. Anything labeled RG7 is a garage with sleeping quarters. So that one could immediately be converted if you give a change in zoning. So it seems to me that this application at least meets one of the criteria indicated in the town code under 133.12. And that's all you need to determine at this point. That's your charge. And I think that this scientific data supports the fact that, in fact, it does meet one of the criteria. And I'd like you to consider that. Federico, did I have anything else in the slides? I think I did, right? Okay, this just shows you how many lots there are that are small in size, how many quarter-acre lots there are, and how many half-acre lots there are. We're looking at over 500 of them. You can go to the next one, please. This shows you the impact of the density and nitrogen levels that would change if you increase the density. You're more than welcome to look at that another time. We can go to the next one. This is from the Nelson Pope and Voorhees, again, the watershed management plan. It shows the ecological areas in the neighborhood, the marshlands, the freshwater wetlands, which again, I'm not really certain if those are hydraulically connected or not. I would assume that they are, but that's not my call, and perhaps we could get somebody to answer that question. And if you move to the next slide, please. This is from the hazard mitigation plan. It's worth a better study, but when you look at the plan, this map that Chief Reed had put together, it does show stormwater surge, which is called SLOSH. And if you go to the next slide, this shows what happens under a Category 3 storm surge in her neighborhood. So we know that we have these storm surges now. We know climate change is going to increase this. This is something to take into consideration when you're looking at the environmental impacts of anything happening in the nearshore overlay district. You can go to the next slide, please. This just shows you sea level rise. Again, on the far right, what will happen in the area. Again, for your further study, but again, another thing that supports that sea level rise will increase the impact of saltwater intrusion, which will increase the houses in the neighborhood. And the next slide, please. This shows you over time. This is going out in decades, what it could look like in 2030, I think is the last date on here, the third one. It's a real problem for the island that needs further study. I agree with the town engineer on that. And the last slide, I think, is the last one. This is interesting. This is MTBE. This has become a pollutant that's of concern on the island. I did a little insert on this, and I did it to enlarge the one section on the left there because there is a green dot amongst all that blue in the center. So there's definitely some problem with MTBE in the center properties. Again, that's the high point of the island. That stuff's running down into the harbors and bays. So that's another thing that needs much more further investigation. And the next slide shows the volatile organic compounds. We certainly have an issue on this island that I think needs further review as far as water quality and what's going on. And this is just the ecological resources. This came from the 2020 comprehensive plan update. It was done by Dodson Finkler. The great plan. It shows you what's important, what we're trying to protect, what we're trying to preserve, what belongs to everyone, and why removing this property from the zone and changing and giving people the ability to do it with such ease, with no real reason, with no plans of the construction of this ADU. I'd like to see those. All I hear is that there is one, but I've never seen the plans for it. It seems to me that should be appropriately submitted for this application before you make any further determination. And I thank you for your time. I hope that didn't take up too much time, but I just wanted to make sure that everybody got an understanding and a better look at what's really out there and how much the town has paid for in these studies. I mean, this is hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of studies. And I think I've made my point that the parcel belongs and you should deny this application. So I thank you very much.
Thank you, Pam. We have a few people
I
who.
would like to speak also. I don't
Okay.
know.
All right, Katie, I was going to go to the physical audience, but since you're unmuted, go ahead.
I wanted to say that I really think that.
State your name for the record, please.
Sorry, Katie Ford. I live at 10 South Ram Island Drive, and I live here full time and have for years. But I think this random allocation of properties, we need a plan. I mean, we spent so much money on coming up with different plans, and now we're looking at one particular unit and second guessing. Also is presented as something that is going to help the police, the emergency care. I did think this was for affordable housing, and I completely agree we need it. But once again, it is not part of a plan. It is just, we're going to go through, how many of these are we going to go through? Every meeting having random opinions, taking everybody's time. We've spent the money. Let's have the plan and not approving something that is not affordable housing, that we need the affordable housing. So this is, to me, ridiculous and sad, since we've collectively, all of our taxes have spent a huge amount of money on this. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm going to go back to the list of sign-ins. I'll call out your name and you can let me know if you signed up just because that's why you're here or you did wish to speak. Karen Kerr.
I just signed up because I'm here.
Okay. Michael Shapkin.
Prepared some comments. I have to say I was influenced by all of the data that was presented. I'll back up for a minute to say I'm somewhat conflicted on this in that I served for a period of time on the planning board. I take the zoning criteria particularly in the near shore overlay, very seriously. It is what stands, the near shore overlay is what really protects our bays, our wetlands. It protects all the things that make us unique as an island. And it's important not to be doing one-off adjustments. We talk about the environment and we talk about preservation. We also had to include us, human beings, as a species that needs to be protected on this island. And I live here year round, and it's desolate in the winter. We're tackling problems one by one. Medical services, lack of services. There's no place to eat. Our school population has decreased to the point where, it may be something that shouldn't be said, but is it viable when we have this few year-round residents on the island? I also think about it in terms of sharing of resources. We are much more successful at granting, we're much more prolific at granting large houses. And the lion's share of the resources of the island, natural resources, are being utilized by people that are building extremely large houses and don't care to live here. And the result of it is going to be that we will ultimately become a residential community with, I use the word community advisedly, without any services, without first responders that live here, possibly without a school, possibly without places of worship. We're dwindling as a community. And yes, ADUs are part of the picture in addressing housing equity within this town, because it's not just the people that fall into this narrow slot of houses that are for low-income individuals or people who can't obtain houses. We're talking about providing housing for middle-income people that are professionals that work on the island and they have no place to live, and that housing stock is rapidly decreasing. We should not be addressing and spending the board's time on variances and adjusting zoning districts. The board should be thinking big picture, and there is absolutely no reason why this island, with the intellect, with the capabilities, with all the studies that have been done, that we cannot figure out a way of having ADUs island-wide. They are inherently affordable because they're not burdened by land costs and they're smaller than other units. They're not, yes, some of them occur on smaller properties, but these properties are grandfathered, and we are literally talking about 3 bedrooms, one of which is an ADU and the other one is another living unit. We're not talking about something that constitutes a significant zoning change. It doesn't feel right the way we distribute our resources within this community. And I just feel that it's beholden to the town board to look at this thing in a way where we have ADUs and housing stock for all islanders, a diversity of incomes throughout the island, including the nearshore overlay, because the nearshore overlay has been abused by in the way in which we chose to enforce our laws. We had a wonderful concept that said most significant element of the nearshore overlay was the vegetative buffer. But you can buy a bungalow and tear it down, and because the vegetative buffer was mowed by the previous owner, you no longer have any obligation to maintain, to have a vegetative buffer. It's fine to have lawn there. If you, in any other portion of the code, if you have a non-conforming building or property, there are obligations to restore the condition to what the code intended when the project is significant and large enough in scale. And we chose not to do that. And we are welcoming environmentally challenging development on the island. And we're struggling with providing a diversity of housing for people that we count on to be here and to be part of the community year round. I can't equate that. I can't intellectually, morally figure out on what grounds we can't do both. We should be able to do both. I'm for the environment and I'm obviously for housing. We have the ability to do both. It's not a one or the other. There are many island families that live in that Cartwright area that have purchased small houses, and they would like to be able to make those available, not as summer rentals. They'd like to be able to make those available as housing stock for the community at large, the year-round community. We should figure out a way to make that happen. Thank you for your time.
Packer?
Linda Hacker. At the last public hearing about this property, former Superintendent Siller said that no one was talking about zoning, that everything was housing, housing, housing. There is, however, another issue on the island that many of us are talking about, which is supported by zoning regulations. Water, water, water. Jerry himself worked on a nearshore regulation, so at the time must have thought that the aquifer was worth protecting. I think there's little doubt about which way this board is going to go, but I would ask you to consider what Lori Baird Raymond and Bill Mastro talked about at the last hearing process. Responding to this request with spot zoning is short-sighted and irresponsible. If you all believe that sections of the nearshore overlay are inaccurate, then fix them. Don't just poke holes in the code. After all, it was written 25 years ago, and maybe some pieces should be adjusted, but fix the zoning. Just pulling one property out of the overlay opens the town up to more lawsuits and more holes. The code is Swiss cheese already, and remember, the next person to ask for a zoning change may not be a pillar of the community. I also want to comment on Matt Sherman's choice of Little Ram as a counterpoint to this property. It's a really specious example, because that's not what, in terms of people coming in and asking for readjustments, I don't think the people of Little Ram, who know that they're basically sitting on top of the water, are the people who are going to ask for them. They were probably, or more likely to be, the neighbors in the same neighborhood. A little bite here and a little bite there, all board approved. And we have overlarge houses that everyone complains about, with vast lawns that don't retain water. We now have the formerly mysterious cistern at Gardner's Bay approved, much to the dismay of the people in Hay Beach, which also affects the aquifer. I suggest that you do this in an orderly fashion. And I think that Joe Fenora's the end of his letter is really pertinent, because it really should be done in an organized fashion. Spot zoning is just, everything on this island seems to be spot zoning, and it's dangerous.
That is it for people who signed up.
I didn't sign up for this.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to the non-signups.
Good evening, I'm Kathy Kenny. I live in Silver Beach, another overlay district. There's an expression you hear in law school a lot, and it's that bad cases make bad law. And it implies, I mean, when you look at a statute and you go, how the hell did they come up with this? And it was really a reaction to a difficult case. And that's what this is. Why do we have 1 acre zoning? Anybody on the board want to tell me why?
This is an opportunity for you to.
No, it's a question I don't know.
Because the
Why?
Suffolk County Department of Health regulated us with 1 acre zoning.
Okay,
That's our base layer of zoning, and we chose to have different zoning, like 2 acre zoning for AA, but Suffolk County Department of Health.
okay.
We
Is there
don't
any other
have, we
reason?
don't have a public water system. That's the real reason.
So is there any other reason?
No,
Nothing to do with density?
no, if that's the reason why Suffolk County Department of Health chose 1 acre zoning.
So that's why this application, forget about where the water table is, up or down. That's why this application should be rejected. This house is on 1/4 of an acre. Today, you could not build that house. And now you're gonna permit a 2-family house on that 1/4 of an acre? Does that sound sensible to you? I don't know if this should not be in the, I'm not an expert on that. But I think this should be rejected just on that basis. And I think Linda already addressed, I'm gonna call Matt Sherman's analysis to little ram a red herring. That's another expression you hear in law school. To say that, to respond to the concerns that people have, that you'll be hit with a plethora of applications, even in Silver Beach said. And he compares it to, you couldn't possibly, the word he used was you could not possibly have another. This property is so unique that you have to grant this because you would not get, inundated with other applications. That's ridiculous. Nobody can buy that. Mr. Gaynor, if our application's in support with Mr. Gaynor, you're in trouble. Anyway, his emphasis was on affordable housing. And Pam also mentioned it, and so did Linda. Our code doesn't require affordable. Is this applicant gonna charge affordable rent, or is she gonna have market rent? So that's also a specious argument. She can charge whatever she wants, and that's what our code permits. And and John Cronin, with all due respect to his expertise, he actually admits that this is a spot zoning issue. I don't know if he quite used, because the letter was read, and I have it in front of me. But that's the implication. He also admits this is a spot zone, and that's a bad precedent. I also submitted a memo to the board. I hope you read it. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else in the fiscal audience? Yeah.
My name is Jan Sodor. I'm a resident of Shelter Island. So I wanted to talk about something else, but since many people spoke before me, so they covered lots of points. I'd like to concentrate on, or maybe start with Matt Sherman's testimony. I'm honored that he singled out my property for environmental review and assured me that nobody can put up an ADU there. And he presented some data I've never seen before. Particularly interesting chart was this bubble chart with varying levels of water, about level of water above sea level. That it's minus 0.5 to plus 1.5. Okay, so that's interesting. He didn't provide this analysis for the applicant's property, showing the variations, which everybody knows about, that the groundwater level will be different when in a spring, summer, fall, and so forth, depending on the rainfall. He just provided one spot, which is the test well that was dug out for in conjunction with the installation of AI system, judging by the days, it was done in 2020. And that showed that that one test showed that the level of the groundwater was 2 feet above seawater. And the town code says, paragraph 133-12(1), the frost rotate table is close to the sea level. okay? It doesn't say exactly how much, but it's close, okay? So to him, the test result that one spot in one time, and not where the well is, but where the AI system is, showed 2 feet above sea level. And so he says, oh, comprehensive plan is plus minus 1.5 feet. I'm 6 inches above in that one spot. That's great. I'm home free, and there's nothing to look at it, you know. And like I said, the town code says close to sea level. So 2 feet to him is not close. 1.5 that would be close. Okay. So that's. I would like him to provide the same analysis that he did for the well near my house for the applicant's property, showing different sea level, water table level relative to the sea for various points of the year. Perhaps there is another test well in there, in that neighborhood, Cartwright. Anybody knows? U.S. Geological Survey test well? Okay.
There's some on Cartwright.
So second, I would like to verify the data that Mr. Sherman provided for the well near on my street, because I've never seen it before, and I actually ran into the USGS engineer who was doing this level a few months ago. My background is engineering too, so I'm always curious how the things work. And I was watching what she was doing. She was dipping the support, and she was commenting how great this water is there, and that the water level is really high and the lens is deep, So I'd like to get those test results so I can be assured that nobody can convert their accessory sleeping quarters to ADUs. But that's not, my area might be not representative. There is entire coast of Shelter Island when people will be able to say, oh, provide some test result and say, okay, I'm 2 feet above, I'm home free. Take me out of the near shore overlay zone so I can put up ADU, rent it year round, or maybe just for summer people or make money. Just wanted one more point on this with freshwater table elevation over sea level. There's this saying, there are truths, there are lies, and there are statistics. You know what I mean? You can pick any data to fit any conclusion you want. So he cited in his narrative that implying that there is 42 feet depth of the water because well is drilled to 60 feet on a well test report. Okay. Now, just because the depth of the water table, depth of the well is 60 feet doesn't mean that there's 60 feet of water in there. Okay. There may be some freshwater lands. And then salt water below. And the same well test result shows that the water starts at 18 feet below surface, which would make it 0.5 feet above sea level. Not 2 feet, that was done in another test, but 0.5. So that alone, that criteria, this is very shaky. He picks the data that fits the narrative, but ignores his own data, which he provided in the application, the well test result that shows 0.5 feet elevation of the freshwater over sea level, which would fit even the comprehensive plan 1994 that was talking about 1.5 feet plus minus, okay? Whereas the code says close to sea level, which is close enough, everybody knows more or less what it is. So that criteria alone disqualifies this property from being taken out, okay? The land surface, the next condition, land surface close to the level of freshwater table, okay? So 15.5 feet to groundwater is not close to him, even though it's the second lowest of the 11 categories of depth on a water table per New York State data. This is one of the charts that Pam Demaras showed. There's like 11 different categories of depth between the surface and the water, and this is the second lowest, okay? So 15.5, to him is not close. The code says the land surface is close to the level of fresh water table. So you're getting the point, okay? That basically all those 5 criteria that he argues, he picks the data that fits the narrative or provides his opinion, what's close or not close, and so forth. So based on the review of the criteria, which I think Tom already did, so it's hard to follow, this property meets 4, if not all 5, conditions for inclusion in the NSO. There's really no grounds to take it out. So that's what I want to say about it. And and the applicant's attorney relied on Mr. Sherman's kind of creative interpretation, selective bias interpretation, then to draw a conclusion, okay, it meets all the criteria, it should be taken out. Nothing should, reasonable people that look at this, at the data, would not agree. Second thing that I would like to comment on is the applicant's attorney letter in which she claims the application is not an application for spot zoning. When you take out one property out of an NSO and all other properties all around you are still in NSO, I mean, no matter what gymnastics you're gonna do, it is a spot zoning application, okay? Case closed. I mean, there's nothing to talk about. I want to comment on this city of development and anticipated future development which threaten the ecologically sensitive area. Pam already talked about it. I'm just gonna repeat that out of those, this whole area, which has 12 houses, it's AA zone, 2-acre minimum parcel size, okay? Except one house, all 11 houses are non-conforming, so they already it would not be possible to build them today. They're all non-conforming, and the applicant's property is the most non-conforming. It's 1/4 acre in 2-acre zoning, so it already has 8 times sanitary density of the property that's normally allowed in AA zone, okay? So now we're gonna be putting 2 families in there, so we're gonna be doubling this still. And all those houses there, if applicant's property gets granted this spot zoning application, what's gonna stop them from applying for the same, okay? And then you go to other neighborhoods all along the shore, will be the same, okay? Next thing I would like to comment, the precedences. So Mr. Sherman says, oh, don't worry about it, there won't be any precedents and so forth, okay? Here we're gonna have an application for 1/4 acre zoning, it's a 1/4 acre lot in 2-acre zoning, and if this application is granted, then what's gonna stop all other non-conforming properties in AA zone for applying the same? Silver Beach, all properties there are pretty much non-conforming because it's AA zone, and they're all 1/2 acre lots. If there's a 1-acre property, it's big for Silver Beach.
Starting to hit on some of the same topics you talked about at the last public hearing. Up until you got to spot zoning and precedents, you were talking about new stuff, so I just want to remind you, we wanted to hear new information.
Okay. Well, anyway, I just want to emphasize again that I disagree with Mr. Sherman's characterization that there is no possibility for precedence. He picked up my area and one specific data and saying that basically expands, don't worry about it, okay? So this is like intellectual gymnastics. Finally, I would like to address the issue, like with this ADU program, okay? When this ADU program...
Just for your clarification, the ADU program is not something that is run by the town. It is run by the state. So we don't have control over who is eligible or who gets accepted.
Well, perfect.
So there's
That's exactly what I wanted to talk about, okay? There was an article in a newspaper recently the community housing board said, oh, we have nothing to do with ADUs, which is, candidates apply to the community development of Long Island, and that gets decided. So this is not exactly forthcoming, okay, because the actual implementation of this program is done by the town, okay? Because people, the guidelines for ADU plus program, okay, said property has to be 1 acre, has to conform to zoning, and so forth, okay? And I have, CBA already granted permits for non-conforming properties to cram ADUs in there. I myself watched one ZBU hearing when somebody came in with half an acre lot, which is already non-conforming, and cram an ADU in it, so effectively converted this to quarter-acre zoning. Like, where do we have in the code that our quarter-acre zoning is allowed on Shelter Island? We don't. And so effectively, I've already seen 3 or 4 applications processed and allowed in ZBA where we have high density in the center, okay, which already has elevated maintenance level, so we're doing even more density, okay? So you can say, okay, fine. The, the new AI systems will take care of it because no nitrates, okay? I'm not even convinced that all those ADUs were required to have the AI systems to start with. Number 2, AIs just reduce the nitrates generation from 60 to about 17, 18. Number 3, they don't remove any other pollutants. Number 4, that has nothing to do with water consumption. If you double the density, you double the water consumption leverage, okay? So I have a certain, that's not how this ADU plus program was supposed to run, okay? It was supposed to be conforming to the town code and not threaten the environment. The implementation of it, which is the town that allows this exceptions, that's town problem. It's not CDLI.
It would be the ZBA board, not this board. Just to clarify, it's a separate decision-making board. Just clarifying that.
So I'm going to conclude my remarks, and I'd like to see this data that Mr. Sharma produced, and I would like to see him provide the same data for the applicant's property, the variations of the water level, throughout the year, different times of the year, different rainy seasons, dry season, and so forth. And I will see what it is. Not rely on one data point, which is already contradicted by another data point that he provided in his application, which he used when it suited his purposes, but disregarded and it didn't fit his narrative. Thank you.
Anyone else in this? Greg?
I'll be brief.
Your name for the record, please.
Greg Toner, and I'll be brief. In the paper this week, last week's Karen Kerr had a letter in there saying what very rational approach to this. Don't rush it. Don't spot zone it. Don't, as Linda said, Swiss cheese it, or somebody said. I think that it is really important to figure out how this works, because most people here are thinking AUD, that magically the only thing anyone will want to buy there or build there is going to do AUDs. 2 or 3 of the houses could go to one very well-off person, and suddenly you wind up another one of these 6,000, 8,000 square feet houses that everybody is so concerned about, and it could happen. It could be an unintended consequence of rushing this. Thank you. I tried to think of a joke, but there were no jokes.
And you repeated yourself last time.
Maybe that counts.
Anyone? Karen, I saw your hand up first, and it's Stephen.
If my name was mentioned, I better get up. Karen Kerr, Hay Beach. I've been here for 54 years, and I've watched this sort of favoritism trend go over the last 5 decades, and in my letter, I mean, I tried to be really clear and simple. Everyone agrees we have a housing problem here, affordable housing. I don't think there's a person alive that doesn't know we need to solve that problem. But this application, I think, is the wrong way to do it. And in my letter, I said, why doesn't the board step back and say, yes, let's review this. Let's establish a process that looks at this overlay district, properly, and not start doing this smart zoning, which I've watched done for 50 years. I've seen the cronyism, the favoritism. I know about all the, 1,500 illegal ADUs on the island because I had one 40 years ago. I don't know if any of you remember. I guess you don't. And it was illegal because I had an oven in it. And at the time, ovens were not legal. So I had a lovely ADU. I had a garage that I changed into an apartment. Now, Prudence Picozzi owns the property. But so I'm very familiar with all this stuff, but I just would encourage the board, don't set a precedent for breaking the law and breaking the code. I mean, I don't know why people can't follow the law and follow the code. And if something needs to be changed, then do it properly and have a proper process, and don't set a standard for breaking our laws. Thank you.
Thank you. Steve?
Stephen Jacobs, good evening. Before the initial hearing, I submitted a fairly lengthy memo. I'm not going to repeat the details.
Don't wave me off like that.
Well, you waved me off.
I didn't, what you?
Whoa.
Oh, God.
Should I pull her? It's okay. Please continue.
Should have been in the middle of my comments. I would have woken people up. I just want to start by sharing some of the bullet points and tweaking one of them. What I had established is that the change of zoning that's sought simply cannot be reconciled with the comprehensive plan, and that's a requirement for any zoning change. The nearshore overlay has stood the test of time. It's been acknowledged in a whole bunch of studies that were cited in my submission. It was recently reaffirmed by the town board in the 2023 housing plan. The evidence shows that this property, in fact, does belong in the nearshore overlay. And the fact that the nearshore overlay may not have been perfectly created, that there may have been arbitrariness in some portions of it, frankly, that's not relevant. What's relevant is, does it fit the criteria set forth in the town code, which directly flow from the 1994 comprehensive plan? And the arguments that it does not are based on unsupported statements and incomplete data. As Jan pointed out, the contrast between Mr. Sherman's analysis of his property and of the applicant's property could not be more stark. Finally, the emphasis on affordable housing that has been placed, that has been emphasized by many of the supporters of this application really is misplaced because, as has been pointed out, the unit would not have to be affordable. And like it or not, the evidence does appear to show that the applicant does not meet at least 2 and probably 3 of the criteria for the ADU program. Now, I was not planning to submit anything else to the board, but Friday night I saw there was a fairly lengthy memo submitted by the law firm representing the applicant, and I felt that required a response. I'm not going to, in any great detail, go through the response. It's there for the board to look at. Among other things, it emphasizes that the law firm relies repeatedly on unsupported claims, selectively chosen and incomplete data. In fact, in one instance, it misrepresents the data it's relying on and how it relates to the comprehensive plan. The firm, as I think may have already been pointed out tonight, failed to acknowledge that the applicant's own paid consultant recommended additional testing. And it placed great emphasis on the memo received from the town engineer. Aspects of that have already been mentioned. I won't go into that. But what jumped out at me about the town engineer's memo was that it did not address the standards set forth in the town code, section 133.12. And those standards, as mentioned, flow directly from the comprehensive plan. Instead, it enunciates an entirely different standard, which, if it were not quite this late, I would read, but is in what I submitted today. And I urge you to look at, because it simply cannot be reconciled with what actually is in the town code. To make that even more glaring, the memo from the town engineer goes at some length into an analysis of the regulations applicable in Southold, Southampton, and East Hampton. And putting aside the fact that the regulations cited have to do with setbacks, putting aside the fact that the geophysical aspects of the towns differ significantly, it doesn't matter. It's an issue of Shelter Island, the Shelter Island Town Code. And with respect to this application, what controls is the town code and particularly the comprehensive plan, because any modification from the town code, any change in zoning, has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. The case law on that is clear. I just want to end, and this is maybe being more blunt than traditional, but at the initial hearing last month, two of you were ready to close this hearing, despite a chorus of folks, members of the public, even the town's environmental consultant, urging the need for further information and analysis. And at least one of the two of you has a longstanding desire to remove the prohibition on accessory dwellings throughout the nearshore overlay. That's documented. So I would like to focus in closing on the other three of you, and particularly the supervisor. Your positions are secure. No one is challenging you. You have the freedom to do whatever you think is in the best interests of the town of Shelter Island as a whole. And in considering how to proceed, I respectfully urge you and the others to ask yourself these questions. What do I want my legacy to be? How do I want to be remembered? Do I want to be remembered for starting to dismantle the island's environmental protections where they are most needed in the context of this application? Do I want to be remembered for approving an application because the applicant is well recognized as a good person and a community member? And nobody is questioning that. Nobody. Do I want to be remembered for being unable to resist the appeals of applicants' supporters? Supporters including applicants' friends, work colleagues, and other members of the school community. Appeals from some of your political patrons and former colleagues. and various supporters who have agendas that go far beyond a basement apartment on a quarter-acre lot in the nearshore overlay. Agendas including prioritizing housing over the island's environment, even in the most environmentally sensitive areas, pursuing public water, and or wanting development that will be good for their business. Do I want to be remembered for giving in to the emotional appeals, and frankly, understandable emotional appeals of other islanders who have, sorry, I missed my thought here. I'm sorry, to the emotional appeals of those who are justifiably angry, annoyed, as I am, about some of the eyesores that one sees walking around or driving around the island. Eyesores that have been permitted by the town code or variances approved by the ZBA. And finally, do I want to be remembered for brushing aside the concerns expressed by the many other islanders who have no connection to the applicant, nothing personal against her, and the concerns expressed by local community organizations representing hundreds of members of our community, or by the Group for the East End? Do I want to be remembered for starting down the path of greatly increasing housing density in the nearshore without proper environmental review or fashionable narratives, but waiting for serious scientific studies, some of which are already underway, and for a wider, better informed public discussion? Those are the questions I hope you will think deeply about. I respectfully submit that your legacies and the island's environment hang in the balance. Thank you for listening.
Lynn?
Lynn Weicker. At the beginning of June, someone came to me and said, I have 3 weeks left, I have to work here, but I have to leave my rental. Can I live with you for 3 weeks? And I said, sure, come on over. And so she did. And as she was leaving, she said, I'm going to spend the summer looking for a 12-month rental. Hope I find one. And that's what we're faced with. It's easy to say, oh, the environment is really, really important. Affordable rentals, that's important too, but not as important as the environment. Frankly, I don't think you have to choose one over the other. You can have both. You just have to think it through. But you can't lose sight of the fact that we are desperate for rentals. 12-month rentals, both for families, working families, which support our schools, and for individuals, professionals, who cannot afford to buy here. My kids make good money. They could not afford to buy here. It's just incredibly expensive. We have gone down the road, long, long way, of an incredibly wealthy island. And that consequence of that is that working people can't live here. So you've got to balance it. And we've got to come up with more rentals. I hope there are more ADUs. I want a lot more ADUs. It doesn't mean that we'll sacrifice our environment. We just have to figure it out in terms of where we could put the ADUs, where we could put 2 and 3 bedroom houses, which is desperate for working families. But we can do it. But don't try and take one over the other. We need both.
I saw Jan raised his hand, but before I call on you a second time, is there anyone in the physical audience who wishes to speak before I go to the Zoom audience? So, Lynn?
I will speak, yeah. I was hoping to not speak this evening, but I will speak. Lynn Colligan, the applicant. And again, as I did last time, I crossed out half of my notes, so I'll be as brief as I can. The fact that I am the first applicant for a zone change does not make it an inappropriate action. Neighboring towns in the East End have active procedures for zone changes, and just because I'm the first resident of Shelter Island to apply for a zone change does not mean that to build an ADU with a zone change partially, that my intentions are egregious. So I just wanted to point that out. I wanted to comment on some of Ms. Demarest's comments. She said, quote, "I am not a lawyer." I also believe she's not a civil engineer. I also believe she is not an environmental consultant. And I also believe she's not even a property owner on Shelter Island. I would love to know how she concludes that my ADU will not be affordable housing. Is she a prophet? Does she know what I plan to charge for my 600 square foot apartment that I would hope to have a teacher in? The affordable rate for a 1-bedroom apartment in Suffolk County is $2,600 a month. That's not affordable. So nobody can predict what I will charge if I even get this ADU. So to pretend to be a prophet and say that I will not charge an affordable rate, I intend to charge under $2,600 for a single person to live in my ADU, and my hope is that it is a teacher or a firefighter or a local person. Ms. Demarest's information is not specific to my site and it's dated. And now she's questioning the credibility of Mr. Fenora, who I don't know, who is our town engineer. Mr. Fenora's report does say that my property does not meet the criteria of the nearshore overlay. So I know that you did read, Mr. Dixon read the last paragraph, but if you read the rest of it, he did concur with Matt Sherman and with my engineer from Ian Consulting. Ms. Demarest also, quote, said, "I am not certain and that's not my call." And that's true, Ms. Demarest, because you are not an expert and therefore she is not a credible witness. Mr. Shatkin, I agree with you that we can do both. I am trying to be able to stay on the island. I am trying to participate in an initiative, the +1 ADU program. I am trying to serve the community in different ways, and I think we can do both. And if people think that I have no regard for the environment, that's not true. I got an AI septic when I didn't even need one, and many of the people who are opposing me don't even have IA septics and they live on the water. Ms. Ford, who just came on, who just chimed in about the problem of building ADUs, I believe she just built a home in excess, greatly in excess of 6,000 square feet, or 5,999, which is the town limit, which is on the water and has accessory sleeping quarters. So I don't know why she's concerned about a 600 square foot apartment, 800 feet from the water. Matt did use the Little Ram Island example based on Mr. Sudol's comments at the last meeting. So it's not a red herring. Mr. Sudol invited them with his previous comments. Mr. Sudol, like Mrs. Demarest, is not an engineer, and what he just told you was a gross misrepresentation. I'm sorry?
That's what I am.
Oh, I apologize.
Electrical engineering, though, right?
Engineer nevertheless.
And an environment, I'm sorry, he's not an environmental engineer, and I do believe there was a gross misrepresentation of the data. I would like to remind Mr. Sudol that we are in a drought and that we're not supposed to be watering our lawns between 9 and 4. Maybe you have a cistern and maybe you have an IA septic, I don't know. I would like to applaud Mr. Jacobs for using the 3 modes of rhetoric in his closing comments. The first one being ethos. He actually is a lawyer and he does have some credibility to be able to speak. Logos is your ability to use logic, and I believe that many of his arguments are flawed. But he did lay it on thick with the pathos. Pathos is where you guilt people into thinking a certain way. And in this case, he was pulling your heartstrings about your legacy, about you don't want to be the one who created this 600 square foot ADU in a place that's 800 square feet from the water that never belonged in the nearshore overlay. So I give him credit for using the 3 modes of rhetoric, ethos, logos, and pathos. In closing, I would like to urge the board to rely on the town attorney and the actual engineers to make your decision. I'm sorry, the town engineer and the actual engineers to make your decision. And I would like to thank you greatly for your diligence and your attention. Thank you very much.
Before I do any repeat people, is anyone, everybody here almost is spoken, so I want to go to the, oh, okay.
Keep going.
Okay, I was gonna say, I want to go to the Zoom audience and see if there's anyone who wishes to speak first.
Yes, if I may, Madam Supervisor, Cliff Clark here, may I speak?
Yes.
Thank you very much, and I will be brief because it's past my supper time. I'm going to try to get my camera to work here. I guess that's okay, right?
Yes.
Oh, dear.
We'll imagine what you look like, Cliff.
Well, it's a little scary, I know. Anyway, I'm not successful on the camera. First of all, I would echo what Ms. Colligan just said about the previous speaker who tried to use guilt and shame as you do your job and talk about your legacy. I personally know every one of you, and you didn't deserve any of that. You were people of honor, integrity. You served well, and you have for years. So shame on anybody who would try to manipulate your thinking by using such rhetoric. You don't deserve it. So disregard anything that gentleman said about your legacy, because your legacies are good. I just want to say I know every one of the people who spoke on behalf of this. I know Joe. I've worked with Joe, Rob, John Cronin, Jerry Siller, Karen Hoag. We built a very nice barn a couple of years ago. We added to the South Ferry. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm Cliff Clark, and I work at South Ferry. And we added a nice extension on our office building that was originally built in 1987. It's interesting because that was exactly the team I picked, and somebody alluded to the fact that they may not be qualified or they may be run of the mill or something. I could have picked anybody on Long Island. I could have gone to New York City and picked people. And because Joe was a town attorney, a town engineer, but I chose Rob, and I chose Karen Hoag, and I chose Matt Sherman, and I worked with Jerry Hill on many projects, Jerry Siller on many projects when he was the town supervisor. And I just think that there's a place, this is one of those moments in time where common sense should play into how you decide. If these guys say that it's not in the overlay or should not have been on the overlay, doesn't meet the qualifications, I think that you can take that one to the bank. I believe these are thorough people. When we were trying to do some things on the barns, things we wanted some special exceptions. Same with the office. Each of them, Karen was in on it, said, no, you can't do that because it doesn't meet this. And John, Rob said same thing, and Matt would say, no, Cliff, we're near overlay, we can't do this. I just want to say that I think that these things should be given very serious consideration. These units, we need housing, and if we don't have a board who can use more than just the letter of the law or the letter of the code or something that's a work in progress, if we don't have you be able to do that, I think you'll miss some opportunities to provide very good housing for good people that will be the core of Shelter Island. I am so grateful that there are 1.5 acre lots that pre-existed zoning, pre-existed the codes that are in these A and AA. South Ferry provides housing for about 7 people each summer. It's very affordable. We have a family and a captain and others who have year-round housing, and they're in parcels that are non-conforming, but everything's by code. We have to be able to address those, in my opinion, where we can say to a code or a zoning law that this is practical, this makes common sense. We need to try to help people have housing on Shelter Island. And I thank you for listening, and I thank you for your time. And do not be messed over by people that want to guilt you. You're better than that.
Thank you. I see, I I have for repeats later, we've got Jan, Michael Shatkin, and Pam, and I see David Lopez, you've raised your hand for the first time this evening, although you have spoken before, so hopefully your comments are new.
Yes, they are. Thank you. They are new. It's David Lopez. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. I indicated in my prior comments and in a letter that I wrote to the board that I'm opposed to the application. I gave a variety of reasons. One of them, and I won't repeat those, one of them, though, that I want to elaborate on is that, I said I was troubled by the use of spot zoning to modify the NSO. And I said that because this process is a one-way street, which will allow applicants to come out of the NSO, but there's no process for getting people into the NSO. I think that's really important in light of something that I failed to mention last time. Mr. Sherman at the ZBA hearing said, as he was going through his analysis, that there are properties in the NSO that shouldn't be included, but that there are also properties that aren't in the NSO that should be. And I think that's an opportunity to take the NSO, which is intended to protect all of us, to protect our drinking water and protect our bays, and fix it so that it does the job it was intended for. And we can do that through a holistic, independent review by experts who are seeking the truth and are not trying to favor one side or the other, but who are really trying to give us an honest analysis. So I would really urge you to substitute that kind of process for the process that we're in the middle of right now. Separately, I want to focus on something tonight that I think should be of concern to the board, but also more importantly to the members of the public who are in favor of this application and of this particular process for the application. And the concern is that if the board grants this application, a trail of consequences could easily follow over a pretty short period of time that will impact, I would say, property rights and taxes for all residents and potentially dramatically change their neighborhoods. So I'm going to give a really quick sketch of how things could play out. This is just directional and people can agree or disagree with it. But let's assume that the board approves this application and then assume over a year or two it approves a large number of similar applications. And that the board also takes other steps on a path to undoing other parts of the NSO and other code provisions that protect our water by, among other things, limiting density. I think those are reasonable assumptions, based on some prior public statements made by some town officials, but everybody should judge for themselves whether that's reasonable or not. What those assumptions in my sketch lead to is a steadily increased water pumpage and septic discharge. And at some point, in some number of years, that will cause the water table in larger and larger sections of the island to shrink or be polluted, and it's going to cause problems in our bays. And at that point in my sketch, here's where it gets interesting. I suspect that some board members will declare, the then current board will declare that there's a crisis and that we have to solve that crisis by doing something. And the question is, what can you do at that point? I think your options are pretty limited. One of them is going to be, I'm sure is going to get discussed and maybe will actually happen, is the implementation of municipal water. And municipal water has got a lot of consequences. Some of the downsides include, it can mean that you lose access to your well, and in exchange, you may receive water that's actually of lesser quality than what you have now, and you're paying a higher price for it. But then municipal water doesn't actually help the bays and creeks, so then municipal sewers and water treatment follow. And of course, all of those things cost a lot of money that's going to come from increased tax bills to taxpayers. Now, some people say, there's going to be grant money, and that may be true, but that relies on the fact that there's going to have to be a grant program available when we need it. And in any case, it's still a bit of a distraction because those programs only cover a fraction of what is a very large cost, and the remainder is going to come from taxpayers either directly or indirectly. So with all of those pieces of my puzzle, my sketch in place, the last thing that happens is that once you have municipal water and municipal sewage, you then have a license to really loosen zoning and to increase development, including building large numbers of multifamily homes, which will forever change the character of neighborhoods. Now, you may say that that is fiction, what I just described. You may say it's improbable, or you may say that it's a reasonable, at least directional guess as to where the board might want to go. And I think that if you think it's a reasonable guess, then everybody should want this process to stop right here, right now. And we should restart with a very well-informed, balanced discussion about what makes sense for the island. Because as somebody else said, or a couple of people have said, housing and the environment can work together, but we really need a plan to make that happen. And that's what we aren't headed toward right now, is a plan. So that would be my suggestion. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else on Zoom who wishes to speak? All right, since we just have duplicates, we'll go back to Jan. I think you raised your hand first. Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow on what David Lopez said, and I actually wrote a letter to the editor a few weeks ago when I called for the same. It's that there should not be piecemeal spot zoning being approved anywhere. What we need is the study. And actually, also the letter from Stella, from Heights Property Association, calls for a study. And even the Matt Sherman suggested that perhaps there should be a study. There's an opportunity that to review NSO. And remember, the NSO was put in place 30 years ago. Since then, we had a definitely rising sea levels and so forth. If there is a study, it's quite likely that we'll find that NSO needs to be expanded, not picked off here and there, and not shrunk, but expanded, okay? But whatever, the qualified people should come in and do independent study of the nearshore overlay and environmental protections which are needed. So that's what I would like to leave you with.
Michael? Just repeat your name for the record.
Still Michael Jadkin.
Just for those on Zoom who can't see you.
So many wonderful things occur. So many wonderful products are designed when you suspend current realities, and when you think what should be rather than what is. I encourage this board to come up with a vision for housing that creates housing opportunities for all that live on the island and serve the needs of the community. Housing that yields a year-round community, not a summer-only population. And a vision for the environment that rethinks the nearshore overlay in a much more effective manner. We've given it away to large houses on the perimeter. We've given up the idea of a vegetated buffer because it was disturbed in the past. When somebody has come in and asked for the world, we've said yes to that. We haven't taken the opportunity to mitigate those large houses with something of benefit to the community. First, I say that as an example because you have the tools, you have laws that people are talking about ad nauseam this evening that no longer apply, and we don't have a vision. Start with a vision, rewrite the laws to support the island that we all deserve. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, did you call on me?
Yes, I did.
Yeah, I just have one question for the town board. This being a zoning change, when will the town board present this to the Suffolk County Planning Commission for review? Since that's one of the things that they will review and it's not part of the agreement that you made with them?
It's already been submitted and they said it's a matter of local jurisdiction.
because it's just an overlay district, it's not an actual change of zoning. So it will stay AA zone. It's just being removed from an overlay. So they said it's local determination and they don't need to see it further.
Is there anyone else who wishes?
Okay, wait, let me just follow up with that. So could we get that posted? Because I'd like to see that. I didn't even notice it was on their agenda at any time. I've been watching their agendas, knowing that it should have gone to them. I'd like to see that memo posted if you may.
We don't have a memo. We spoke to them at a meeting. And they said they don't want to see it. It's a local determination.
Did they understand that the overlay district is 78 acres in size?
Yes.
Okay, then I would just like to remind the board that this is in fact, a zoning change, basically for a request to eliminate the land use variance that was required by the ZBA. So, it really becomes a very, excuse me?
No. Go ahead, Pam.
Stop talking.
This is a land use issue. So if you will, permit a zoning change without a full application, which I will contend this still is without any information on the construction of this ADU, as Mr. Sherman said at the first public hearing, this could affect any district, any zone, any property. So again, a AA property in residential zone that the business is sitting on, oh, well, maybe they want to change to commercial property now so that they can have amplified music without having to get a noise variance. There are a lot of implications in making this decision, and I really do request that you take a hard look at it as required by SECRA. It's my understanding now this is an unlisted action. So you do have the right to request a full environmental assessment form to get more information about this piece of property and how it will affect the area. Perhaps that's a good way to go. I would request that the town board also ask the planning board, the CAC, and the ZBA to weigh in either as interested or involved agencies on this application, given the, what do I want to say? The magnitude of it. Because that's what we're talking about, the magnitude of this changing zoning districts throughout the island without any particular procedure or consideration to that. So I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else before I bring it back to the board?
I'd just like to respond to
Your name again for the record.
excuse me, Stephen Jacobs. I'd just like to respond to the critique of my comments. Various of applicant supporters have stressed how good and deserving a person she is. Others have emphasized the obvious need for affordable housing. Some might say that was an attempt to guilt you into approving this application. I was definitely not attempting to guilt you into denying this application. I was simply encouraging you to look at the facts, the law, and the consequences, rather than who's advocating on each side. Thank you.
Anyone else before I bring it back to the board? What do we want to do? Is there any additional information other than looking at everything that we have received and all of the letters that we've gotten?
They just shared information that there was a conversation with the planning commission. I had no idea. When did this happen? And why wasn't the board apprised of it? At least.
It happened twice that I know of. Once was at an actual planning commission meeting. I was at a meeting with Christina and the members of the planning commission and the members of the Suffolk County planning boards. And we were discussing things like zoning changes. And I was talking to them about, would this qualify as something that you would want to see? And I laid out all the specifics. This is a nearshore overlay district on a AA zone property. The intention of the nearshore overlay is to protect the coastal areas. And I explained to them that we're getting an application because the applicant doesn't believe that their property belongs in the nearshore overlay district. Is this something that you would want to see? And they said no. They said it is not
going to impact any neighboring communities or towns. It is of local jurisdiction. It's not even next to like a county property. So they said, no, they don't want to see.
They've told us that we could still ask for a
And I-
review, and maybe that's something that we would consider. But I didn't know about it until just now. Or perhaps not. Maybe we wouldn't consider it just.
We can ask them, but that's going to be their response.
We're, you haven't called on. Is that something that you want us to do a formal request for then?
Yeah, I think it's worthwhile. I don't, it's a zoning issue.
I'm just a little shocked because this is the first time I heard of this. Is it now? So, yes, I would. No, not that I, not that my recollection. But it would not be a bad thing to submit to them and get something in writing, since this is news.
Okay. Is there any other information that we think we need?
PW Grocer had indicated they were gonna do the environmental review.
Yes, they have to finish the secret, and they can't complete that until we close the public hearing. Caitlin, do you want to speak to that at all?
So we do have everything that we need to make a determination of significance at this time to complete the seeker.
That generally doesn't happen until we close the public hearing, and then we get the final report, and that we discuss it when we get to a work session. So even if we were to close this evening, we wouldn't put it on for, like, we wouldn't have it on the work session tomorrow. We'd pull it off so that they have time to complete the report.
Also, just for the public's edification, this matter started at the ZBA, and it was withdrawn and then brought to us. Can you elaborate on that? I mean, I guess I should have asked Lynn when she was here, but.
Yeah, is Matt still on? Because Matt was the one who did the process.
I thought he spoke to it today.
He did.
And he spoke to it last time.
Yeah, thank you, Matt Sherman, again for the applicant. I spoke with it last time, and I kind of started off this hearing with the same thing. What we did was, when we realized we needed to do a zone change or a use variance, at the time, there was no process that had been created at the town to do a zone change. So having the only avenue ahead of us was to do a use variance. We got through that process of the initial application and the hearing, and they had actually closed the hearing when the town finalized their procedure and their process for doing the zone change. And at that time, we withdrew the ZBA application because now we had the proper avenue in place to come to you guys for a change in zone.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
All right, so from what I'm hearing then is we've got just a request from the Suffolk County Planning Commission for a determination.
I had wanted the engineering letter, but we got that.
Right. What I would like to suggest then is we close the public hearing except for written correspondence, being the written correspondence.
I would like to keep it open. I would like to adjourn it. If there's more correspondence coming in, more people can talk. I don't think it hurts another 3 weeks to have another hearing. I don't know what the rush is. This is a huge issue.
It's a huge issue, but I don't know, I mean, people were starting to repeat themselves today. Are we going to hear anything new?
I don't know. I wouldn't want to give up on that, Amber. I really wouldn't.
Yeah,
Another 3 weeks, is that a big deal? Honestly, in the whole scheme of this application. Honestly.
I don't know if it will.
We don't know. You just said we don't know.
Accomplish anything. I do not believe that it will accomplish anything more. I mean, we've got like a stack of letters, duplicate submissions at times. We got criticized in the editorial this past week about the length of our meetings. How long have we been on this public hearing? How long did it contribute to the last public hearing that lasted? Part of the trying to manage these agendas is trying to make sure that what we have on the agendas fits into a reasonable timeframe. When we continue to have hearing after hearing held open, which we did last year repeatedly.
This is a huge issue. I don't know how you could possibly minimize this in two scheduled hearings. Honestly, I don't know how you can sit there and say that and argue. I really don't. I don't get it. It's like if you guys just want to, it seems like you three just want to clear this off the table. Let's move on. That's the impression I'm getting. Am I wrong?
Yes. So I think that what has happened is the application itself is specifically to determine whether or not the property belongs in the nearshore overlay. We're not approving an ADU. We're not taking a stance on ADUs in the nearshore overlay. We're not determining whether or not we need to reevaluate the nearshore overlay. We're not determining whether or not we're going to rewrite the nearshore overlay. This is a very specific application, and someone is taking advantage of the opportunity that's in the code to request that this review happen, because when the nearshore overlay was written, they understood that there might be errors and people need a relief valve. This application is asking us to look at that parcel for that reason. There's a lot in the letters and everything that goes beyond the application. That is something that we do need to look at, but it's not necessarily the focus of the hearing. This needs to be taken outside of the hearing, outside of the application, and discussed. I think that what the application is requesting, I think we have the information necessary to evaluate that. I think the larger questions need to be handled outside of this hearing.
I think that we need to, I think this is a big issue. I agree with you. And that's why I think we need to bring it to a work session and start working through it. We've got a lot of information here and we have to decide what we're going to do about it. This is the first thing, this is the first one that's ever come before us. And there are a lot of questions. So I would imagine that it's going to take us a while to work this out. And so I think we should start.
In a way, I agree with Megan, the fact that this is about whether or not this property belongs in the nearshore overlay.
Yeah.
And to be honest with you, I don't think that's really a question for us. The piece of legislation that provided a relief valve was, it wasn't a proper relief valve. The ZBA, that's why they exist. The town board writes legislation that deals with everyone. And if you need an exception, you go to a different body to get, yeah, I know.
Applications for a change in the zoning map or this chapter shall be submitted in a form required by the town board.
Yeah.
It's to the town board. So, like, this is what we have. We need to fix that. I don't.
We need to
ever-
fix that.
I
That's a
never want to look
mistake.
at another one of these again. We
Yeah.
do need to fix it.
And if we're not gonna talk about what we're gonna do to have this make sense, and maybe we can use the further hearing for that.
Well, but I think that's but the hearing is, at least how I see it, Ben, is that the hearing is us hearing from the public, which we have heard a lot. We've got a lot of correspondence, you know? But now, exactly what you're saying, we have to figure out what to do. And where we do that is not here where we don't speak and we listen, which is listening is important. It's important for us to get the feedback. It's important for us to get the information. But we've got a lot to figure out. And like I said, we should dig in and start thinking about how to figure it out. Do we need to address the code that says zone changes come to us? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's so many pieces of this that we have to work through. And so I think we should start.
There will be public hearings. Once we come up
Yeah.
with legislation, there will be public hearings for that.
But before that happens, you're going to
But this application, we
allow
have to
this
do it.
application.
We have to deal with the application.
We have to evaluate it because there's 5 criteria that we need to sit down and review what's been submitted, all of the letters, all the information.
I mean, the proper way to address the problem is to do a study and rewrite the Deer Shore overlay. I'm sure this property will get written out of it in that process.
Yeah, but we still have to address the application.
have to address the
application.
Yeah, we still have to.
We could talk about that. We could talk about a study. We could talk about the code. You know what I mean? There's so many
Excuse me,
follow-on
what did you
things.
just say that, what with the application?
We have to deal with this application. We have an application before us. We have to make a decision.
Can't just ignore it.
We can't ignore it.
Okay, we can.
We don't have to approve it.
You don't
We
have to approve it.
to approve it. There's no need to approve it. We could just say no.
That's a discussion that we should take to a work
I
session.
mean, I don't, is that something that would be considered? I don't know where.
Well,
you
but
know.
isn't that where we would decide yes or no in a work session, not in a public hearing?
Yeah.
Right?
So you have to close the public hearing in order
So that
to
we
have that
can,
discussion.
we can
at
have
a
that
work session.
discussion.
I know that.
And then we can.
Okay.
I just think another public hearing is warranted. That's all. I don't think it does any harm to have another public hearing 3 weeks from now. Honestly.
I disagree, but I hear your opinion.
I disagree to it. I'd say we close it except for written correspondence after we make a request to the Suffolk County Planning Commission.
Much time? Like 2 weeks?
It depends on how long it takes them to respond.
Okay, we probably need to set some sort of like a time deadline, like.
3 weeks?
Yeah.
We could keep it open now.
now.
We could keep it open now and make a request to the Suffolk County Planning Commission that we would like a comment. I would want comment, input. And if we don't know
And
how
if they
long.
comment at the next monthly meeting, close it?
No, keep it open now. We don't know how, when is Suffolk?
No, but
When,
the
when
next
do they
monthly meeting,
get
if
back
they
to us?
respond for the next meeting. At that meeting, do we then close it? Because that's the one thing it's being held open for.
Well, we will oftentimes
have to close the
leave,
hearing.
we leave, we'll close the public hearing except for written correspondence. And so that one piece of correspondence is what we would accept into the record. And in my estimation, it's subject to local jurisdiction, or this is our opinion on it.
It'll be one or the other.
It's not gonna be subject to.
99.9% of the time is local jurisdiction, because we don't abut any other jurisdiction.
And we can always, if we think that they come back and say, oh, no, it's not subject to local jurisdiction, we have this, and we want to reopen the public hearing, we can.
Yeah.
But my question to you, Thomas, is you're talking about a timeframe. Like what, I thought for this, there wasn't like a 60-day, like it's automatically
No, there's
granted.
not.
Okay, so
Yeah.
what kind of timeframe are we under for having to make a decision?
It's just like any other legislative act, like, when you close a public hearing on a code change, there's no 62-day limit, so it's, up to,
Let's give a reasonable estimation of what it will take, and 3 weeks at least for Suffolk County to respond.
I'm not sure, but, I can.
I don't know.
ZBA people, the ZBA liaisons,
Mhm.
we submit a lot of things to.
How long does it usually?
Christina usually gets them back within a week, 2 weeks.
So do we think like 2 or 3
I think
weeks?
2 weeks is sufficient.
I mean, so here's my question, just for understanding, like if we did, like let's say we did 2 weeks, what would happen if we didn't get the correspondence? Would we just keep the, like, it's just like procedurally, you know what I mean? Like if we said a certain amount of time and they're on vacation or whatever, like what happens? Like would we just make a motion to keep it open an additional amount of time? Like how does
Yeah,
it?
you can
work?
do that, I mean, because we don't have the 62-day.
Okay, cool. I just didn't understand how that worked procedurally.
Making it too short for no reason doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and I didn't want to risk that it's automatically approved because we don't get correspondence back. And so we don't,
Yeah.
we take it out of our decision-making hands.
It feels like
And make it
3
default.
weeks is a reasonable amount of time, but 2 weeks is not enough. But it is July and August.
Mhm. But you were suggesting a time frame because why? Like, does it need to be written into?
I mean, just to have it cleaner, but just to be clear, I mean, I guess because there's not a 62-day limit, you can just leave it until you get the correspondence. Yeah, but I think, just specific in the motion that it's, for this only. So that's the only.
Okay. I see Pam, you raised your hand. Was that still raised from earlier, or was it a new public?
No, I just have a new question for the town board because it seems to me that you're not going to require any plans submitted or site plans or surveys or anything for the construction of this ADU. And in doing that, you're creating a situation of segmentation under SECRA. There's two actions, and SECRA on the short form, I think it's question 1 even. It says, what's the project and what's the intent? What's the need? What's the necessity for this? And you're eliminating any information on what seems to be the necessity for this, which is the construction of this ADU. So I think that you're making a mistake closing this hearing without demanding those construction documents from the applicant. I just don't see how you can close this hearing without it. That's the reason she is applying for this use variance via a zoning change elimination. So I'm not really sure I understand how you can close this without requesting that from the applicant. And how can that be separated? And how possibly can PW Grosser do a proper analysis of it if that's what this is all about?
Interesting point, but Thomas, is it relevant?
Or can Caitlin speak to this since they're doing the review?
Yeah.
Caitlin, go ahead.
Okay, sure, I can speak to this. So, I mean, the action here is the removal of the Nearshore Peninsula Overlay District for an ADU. It's not end an ADU construction. So there is a difference in that approach. This is a conversion of an existing basement for an ADU, but before the board, the action before the board is the removal of the zoning overlay for the ADU, not end the ADU. It's not construction of the ADU. I hope that kind of clarifies it a little bit.
But we need to know what the ADU is and how it will be built. So we need more information on the ADU.
The ADU, I mean, as we talked about earlier, the governor just signed a bill to make ADU construction a type 2 action anyway. So I don't think there's a segmentation issue with this, but.
Correct. The ADU itself is a type 2 action. Before you, it is the removal of the overlay zoning district. And yes, it is to eventually be able to have an ADU, but it does not involve the construction of the ADU, this decision.
Makes it.
I can't wrap my head around that.
It sounds like there's an open issue here.
I really can't. I don't know what you're saying. I mean, that's.
If I may jump in again, Matt Sherman for the applicant, as Caitlin just she concisely described the nearshore overlay, the change in the overlay district is the ask in and of itself. The desire that precipitated that is the construction of the ADU. They're two separate things, even though they are intimately connected to one another. I have no problem submitting, if the board would like to close the hearing tonight and say, we're closing the hearing except for written correspondence from the Suffolk County Planning Commission to confirm that they don't, that this is for local determination, and the ADU construction drawings that have been submitted to the town and through the ZBA and through other avenues previously. I can submit those tomorrow. That's not a problem at all. So that could put that whole question to rest. You'll have them. If you want to look at them, you can. If you don't want to look at them, you don't have to look at them. But we can submit those to the town tomorrow morning. That's not a problem at all.
The criteria that we're looking at is the freshwater table, how close it is to sea level, and saltwater intrusion. The land surface is close to the level of the freshwater table. The land drains towards creek or bay waters. Density of development and anticipated future development threatening ecologically sensitive areas. The land drains toward freshwater ponds. So number 4, density of development. Do we need the plans in order to make that? I guess that would be my question, is like, if we're looking at the criteria.
I mean, it's,
That,
there's a lot of density.
is density not an issue? It's
Well, the question is asked here,
it's a-
1-bedroom ADU.
a two-bedroom, a two-family house in essence. That's what it becomes. It's not a single-family home. It's a two-family house.
Like, the real rub here is this is not the way to do this. I mean,
This is what we're stuck with.
yeah. I mean, making a one-off exception to, this is not the way to do this.
And we're gonna have to make a decision, so, like,
I mean,
what we can work on is making
yes.
this not come to us again.
Okay, I'm with you on that, because I never want to see another one of these again.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're gonna sit down as a board and take a real look at the nearshore overlay, which I think we should, because it was done 25 years ago, science has changed. I mean, there's so much more information available to us now that wasn't available 25 years ago. I'm all on board for that. And let's redraw this thing. And I'll tell you, from what I can see, this will probably be out of the nearshore overlay if we redraw it. And that's how we should be doing it. So this, to me, makes no sense.
So just, what are you suggesting that we do with the application that's before us then?
Deny it.
But don't we have to close the hearing to even have that discussion?
Yeah, we.
Right? I mean, that's
What's
what I'm
the question
saying.
you just asked me?
Exactly.
What should we do with the application? I said deny it, but.
No, I know, but I'm trying to get to, like, regardless, we have to do something here, right? We've got to approve it, we've got to deny it, we've got to deal with the issues that it brings up.
Right now, we're just getting our own personal issues out on the table because we've listened to everybody else. And I know we normally do this in a work session,
Yes,
but
because
it's also still public.
This is a
but-
public hearing that we're supposed to be listening.
Yeah.
And, you know,
I just think that I think that we have a lot of things. We've got this application, we've got the process, we've got questions about like, it's brought up so many things. And like I said, I've said it before, I think we need to start working on all of them in a work session.
it's in the name.
Exactly. There's a lot of work to be done that this brings up.
Right, so who thinks we need the site plan for the ADU in order to evaluate the criteria on density of development?
Well, I think we should see it again. I mean, it's readily available, so let's have it. It's not like it's gonna slow this down. So,
What exactly are you asking for?
I think he's
Because
asking.
the site plan
Not
we
the site.
have, you mean the construction?
The construction
plans for the
plans.
ADU? I
Yeah.
don't think it's necessary, but if other people need it, then that's fine.
because this is a request for a zoning change for an ADU.
Right.
So, like I said, it's readily available. It's not gonna slow anything down.
Then what I would like to do is we hold it, we adjourn the public hearing. But can we leave it open for just the Suffolk County Planning Commission and then the site plan so that at the next public hearing, we are just discussing those two topics? And not all of this other stuff.
You can do that. You can leave it open for written correspondence to include those two items. Like those are options.
Giving us your options again.
I say you could leave it open to the next hearing for those specific items, or you could close it and leave it open for written correspondence for those two specific items.
So if we closed it, then we wouldn't we would just accept those, only the site plan and whatever the letter is that the county gives us? And would we be able, to, once we had both of those things in hand, would we be able to start working on it in the work session?
Yes.
If we did the latter? Okay,
Yeah.
I would like to do that.
I would like to do the latter also.
Close it to the written correspondence.
I would like to adjourn it.
And the Construction plan.
I'm sorry, but how do you close this if you're going to get
You
site
have-
plans?
Pam,
I'm
Pam,
sorry,
you're out
but
of- Pam, you are out of line. I haven't called on the public again. I see your hand is raised, I see Bill Mastro's hand is raised, but you have to wait, please.
Well, we're closing it, waiting for it, so that's fine.
Well, no, written correspondence only, or leave it open for
Oh,
a public hearing?
I'd like to leave it open for a public hearing, but I hate this case.
Good job.
Yeah.
By not-
Did not say this was fun.
It's not fun. By not closing it, we just prolong the
My
agony.
head is killing me.
Because we can open it again and just close it if we have everything we need. And we're still in the same place, so
Okay, so what are you suggesting?
adjourn it. I mean, leave it open.
Leave it open
Oh.
for just discussion on these two topics.
Adjourn.
Is there a way?
You're just saying adjourn it, and then anything can get regurgitated. Like, I'm trying to.
Is that the worst
limit-
thing? Is that really the worst
What
thing?
time is it? It's 9:20.
Yeah.
Like,
What
what time did we go to this? At 7?
Because the reporter put it in the paper that there was too long. Come on.
I have a legitimate question.
Yeah.
My legitimate question is, as part of this, leaving it open, adjournment, whatever you want to call it, how can we work in, I guess we have to wait for the work session, a discussion of what we do with the
That's
fix the legislation?
that's the issue.
We don't,
That's the issue.
that we can start to discuss, because we're gonna start to talk about the legislation. We can talk about the legislation separately from this
And
application.
how we get the studies done and how we pay for the studies.
Yes.
Because without that piece, it's hard to do this.
Totally separate topic.
That's on my to-do list. My lengthy to-do list. But we can discuss that separately.
Okay.
What I am trying to accomplish is not having like a free-for-all on all of the topics. Like, we limit it to these two items would be what we would discuss. Like, we would leave the public hearing open, but limit it to only the Suffolk County Planning Commission letter and the density of development that gets discussed with receiving the site plans on the, or the, construction plans on the EDU.
And receive, we have to close it to get Grocer's report, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just make a point on behalf of the applicant?
It's just not yet, Karen.
Sure.
I mean, Albert, you want to leave it open and
Yes,
free for
I
all.
do.
So I'm still in the same place.
Yeah.
Leave it open. But like I said,
Broadly open?
run the up. Well, is there anything else that you're gonna need, Albert? Other than these two items?
I don't know what I might need, Ben. What expertise do you have regarding the zone change? Anybody here at the table have expertise? Let's let people come in. This is a big issue for the island, a very big issue. Adjourn it. Does another 3 weeks hurt? We're gonna have to wait for the planning commission to come back to us?
Not a bad point.
I don't know what the rush is, honestly. This is,
You can close it, yes. Nothing major happens in 3 weeks, I will vote to close it.
All right, let's see, Pam, there's a number of people who've had their hands up. I think Pam had yours up first.
Okay, I'm just concerned that you were gonna close it and then accept additional information from the applicant, and I think that that's poor process. So if you're going to ask for the additional information from the applicant and keep the hearing open, that seems reasonable. It's a reasonable decision in this case, because it really is the intent of the application to build this ADU in the Near Shore Overlay District. And I think
Yes.
it's an important point, and I don't think it should be overlooked. So I would appreciate it that you do in fact adjourn this. Let us see the application for the actual construction. Give us a chance to look at it, make comments on it, and then take it to the next hearing and see where it goes. I agree that it's a waste of time to go over all the criteria again. And you have control over that during the course of the public hearing, of course, but this is important information. And I think the public has a right to see it and not get it submitted behind closed doors where we can just look at it and not really have time to comment on it or get some answers that, some questions answered that we might have. So I'd appreciate you to consider that. Thank you very much.
Can we leave it open so the public can discuss the two things we're waiting for? A letter from
That's-
Suffolk County.
That's what I was suggesting, is that we leave it open, receive these two items, and the next public hearing is only for these two items. That's what I was suggesting.
Okay, I did not
Stephen
fully
Jacobs,
understand that.
you see you have your hand up, and then
Stephen Jacobs again. Just wanted to throw out a possibly more efficient alternative, and that is for the next hearing, set time limits. Give each side 20 minutes or 30 minutes, or each speaker 3 minutes, and I think that would actually give you better control of this, because I get the regurgitation point. I'm probably somewhat guilty of it myself. And I think we don't need the beeping stopwatch that we had before, but something like that, I think, just might be a good way of disciplining everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bill Mastro.
I was gonna say, Bill Maestro, I see you have your hand up, and then Karen, you'll be
Yeah,
next.
I've had my hand up for a little while. I hate to have put it up at the end of this. One thing before I say anything, just recognize, because this is an issue of first impression, it's gonna be really messy, and it's been messy. So don't beat ourselves because it was messy. Anyway, I had a real easy point of clarification. If you close the hearing, or if you adjourn it just for those other two items, are you still accepting correspondence from the public? Because I didn't speak tonight because, God, everyone was speaking forever, but I have 2 or 3 points I was going to submit as, you know, as a piece of correspondence. So it's just a point of clarification. You guys have gone on way too long.
I
It could
was,
be the third thing we're waiting for.
I was going to suggest that only correspondence for these two items. So do you wish to?
I don't know. I'm not going to torture anyone. I would rather just submit something that's one page and say a few things. But it's gone on too long tonight. I don't want to contribute to the messiness. So I may be the only one who still submits something, Amber.
Yeah, I guess leave it alone for these two items.
Yeah, but having public
And-
discussion about them.
Yes, yeah, no, it would be the next public hearing.
But
I mean, that's what I was suggesting.
Karen Hoag wanted to say something.
Yes, Karen?
Yes, I would just, I think, for efficiency purposes, I think, and I'd respectfully request that the board close the public hearing and leave it open for written submission of the Suffolk County Planning Commission letter, as well as for the construction plans, which Mr. Sherman said he can get to the board first thing in the morning. I don't see the ADU construction plans as really having any meaningful impact to neighbors as part of this application. It's a 600 square footprint. But, limiting, if you keep the public hearing open just for discussion on those two items, I would expect that would evolve into similar conversations that are being expressed tonight, because people want to have an opportunity to be further heard on that. And I mean, we assume that the Suffolk County Planning Commission letter is going to come back and say that it's a matter of local determination. And then it's a question of what everybody wants to comment on in terms of the floor plans of the ADU. So I just don't see what keeping the public hearing open for those two limited items would be.
Well, hear what people say about it. But
Yeah, I think criteria dealing with density, like that's the challenge.
I don't think it has any impact on the density in the basement of the existing house. She can build a sleeping quarters in the basement right now, getting a basic building permit, and no one will say boo. It's just the fact that she wants to rent it year round that requires this jump. She could have a finished basement tomorrow and no one would think twice about it. No one would know about it. So
well, the
I
difference
think
is
that's,
it'll be
it's
living there
silly.
full time.
She could have
That's
someone living there full time.
Well-
She absolutely could.
And if we find out, well, you know.
No, it's just,
She'd have to share a kitchen.
it's just
You
silly.
could ever remain, she'd share a kitchen.
What's silly is this process of us making an exception for this one piece of property. And that's my main objection to all this. It's not the way to do this.
I understand. Unfortunately, that's what the code says we have to look at.
No, we don't have to, we can stop and fix it, and so,
Still have to finish the process.
yes. So,
Jan, you,
I'm just gonna add my 2 cents to this. I mean, lots of people watch this on YouTube and on channel 22. Sorry?
that's if they're really bored.
You won't be surprised how many people watch your meetings, right? And there will be a reporting in the reporter and so forth. Many more people might want to comment. I actually didn't submit my own letter, but I'm gonna write down my concerns here. No more than 2 pages. So I would suggest that the public has another opportunity to comment, okay? Because there may be more people coming, okay? The second thing, I just want to comment on something that you just said, that she can build the basement tomorrow. It's actually not true because the AI septic system is best fit. Strictly says no change of use, no expansion, no new bedrooms, and so forth, okay? Didn't you read that?
I should have specified, she can also get an updated health department permit to go with the
So she
basement
has to do the
apartment.
process, so she cannot build it.
There's a process, Jan. I'm not saying there's not a process, but it's been 3 hours. I have a massive headache and I would like to move on.
she wouldn't have to come back to the.
She would not have to come back to the town. She wouldn't have to have a ZBA hearing. She wouldn't have to do a lot of things.
But I am for leaving it for these 2 items.
Okay, so,
And having public comment on these 2 items, which may be nothing, who knows?
yes. Okay, and how do you feel about leaving it open for any general written comment? We'll call it the Bill Maestro.
General written comments, don't love the idea,
Okay,
but I'd love to hear from Bill. Maybe we just limit it to him?
no, we cannot. Okay, so we're going to adjourn the public hearing, leaving it open for response from the Suffolk County Planning Commission on whether or not it's local determination or not. Receipt of the the plans for the ADU. We'll post those on the website. And then written correspondence on anything for 1 week. How's that?
Oh, okay. That's good. Jan, Bill, did you hear that?
You can get your letters in.
I will never say I'm happy after sitting through this tonight.
Don't worry, we'll do it again in 3 weeks.
Yeah. So we will limit the public section for comments.
For 1 week.
No,
Wait, are we-
3 weeks for just these 2 items.
So we're closing it
No, we're,
to these?
No.
we're
that's not
adjourning.
gonna
Yeah.
No, we're just gonna,
That's
it's just
The
crazy.
hearing is gonna be the hearing.
It's
We're
just
not
gonna, it's just
keep
gonna,
people to those 3.
I was like, we're just gonna do this again. I mean,
I will do my best.
Yeah,
I did
that's
start to remind people because I have
It's not
notes.
gonna happen.
Yeah,
People
yeah, I have my notes, like,
No,
okay,
it's
yeah,
good.
you've already talked
No,
about
it's not
this.
gonna happen. No.
I have faith
But
in
if
our
that's what
supervisor.
everybody wants to do, I will take extra Advil before the meeting.
No,
All right, so-
that's not what I wanted to do. What I wanted to do is that I had to rewrite this legislation and get studies.
Okay, well, we can discuss that a different day. Okay, I'm putting that motion on the table.
Second,
All in favor? Aye.
aye.
Hearing's open.
For these two items plus written correspondence for 1 week on anything except for those two items.
All right. No, I'm opposed to that. I'd like to have the hearing open.
Yeah, if you oppose it, then it's gonna get closed.
Yeah.
Okay.
She is leaving the hearing open, Albert.
Yeah.
This is leaving the hearing open. She's proposing to leave the
Let me
hearing open.
propose-
Oh, but I thought you were just saying only the correspondence.
For these two topics, it's open for the public hearing next time for these two topics. Suffolk County Planning Commission determination and the,
I thought you said you were gonna take a lot of Advil and have the hearing open fully.
I'm not taking any of them.
I'm not sure I support that.
I'm taking that.
No?
No, I'm not.
Okay, no, you don't wanna keep the hearing open.
I want to keep
For
it open
everything.
for everything.
Not
I
for
want to keep
everything.
it for these two
Limited.
items.
Okay,
Limited opening.
okay, I'm opposed to that.
Okay, all right, then my alternative proposal is we close the public hearing
Yes,
except
please.
for
Yeah, that's gonna get
a
closed.
formal letter from Suffolk County Planning Commission.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
I mean, no, but I mean, that was our opportunity right there.
Yeah. So, okay, that's what it is then.
So it's
We're
planning
just,
commission and the ADU plans, or just the planning commission?
Planning commission.
just the planning commission.
Finally.
Okay, that did not go the way I thought.
No.
All right, we will now
There's still another
open.
hearing.
Oh, we have one more here.
We do, but I think that's going to be shorter.
Hopefully it won't be longer.
No correspondence.
Nope.
No. I was hoping for it, but no,
Only two of us voted for that.
didn't get it.
Okay, so we are doing the continuation of the public hearing for Suffolk County Water Authority, West Neck Water Site Plan Review application.
Okay.
And are on
Anybody
this
left?
for a second? There's a few people.
I think the only question we had left was about the right of way, and that's something that's sort of outside the application.
Yes,
So,
yes. Yeah, I think what we need is, I think we need to have the site plan done with the road going down the easement. So if we look at the current plans, right now, it is going across the Wallace property. So I think we need to have it so that the site plan gets represented with the proper road driveway utilizing the easement. And once we have that, we can continue the public hearing. And the reason I think that we need to keep it open is that I think that the adjoining neighbor has asked for screening, and I think they need to understand what the new driveway would look like and the impact that that will have on the screening.
yeah, we won't be able to put screening on their side of the driveway.
No, there isn't. So that's why I think that we do have to leave this open. So I will make the request.
Okay. I second that.
Okay.
Oh, that's yours or that's?
Is there any public comment on that? Knowing that we will continue this public hearing in 3 weeks, if they can come.
Yeah, no,
They should be able to get the site plan done.
Yeah.
what the hell I am?
Should be able to do that. Yeah.
Somewhere.
So no public comment, then we will adjourn this public hearing to August. Yeah, August 10th. Okay, it's very close. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
We will reopen the regular meeting. And we have one resolution.
Oh, that's good.
don't even remember where we are. Hold on. Like, I'll read it.
Sure. Whereas the public hearing was held on Monday, July 20th, 2026, to hear any and all persons either for or against a local law entitled Local Law amending Chapter 53 Docks. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board does hereby adopt local law number 5 of 2026, be it enacted by the town board of the town of Shelter Island as follows. Local law number 5 of 2026. 53-8, design and construction of private and commercial docks. Splashboards are discouraged but may be allowed if, after review and consideration of the criteria set forth under, and this is the change, 53-17 is changed to 53-16 of this chapter, the town board determines that they are suitable. This local law is adopted pursuant to the authority granted by Municipal Home Rule Section 10, general powers of local governments to adopt and amend local laws. If any section, provision, or part of this local law shall be adjudged invalid or unconstitutional by the court of competent jurisdiction, then such jurisdiction shall not affect, such adjudication shall not affect the validity of the local law as a whole or as any section, provision, or part thereof, not so adjudged invalid or unconstitutional. This local law shall take effect immediately upon filing with Secretary of State. So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. All right, we open it up for general public comments.
If we just wait, or if we just make it go really long, then nobody's even awake at the end. Is that the strategy?
I'd like to make a motion to
What is
close this. Second, all in favor? Aye. Thank you, everyone.